Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Everyday Radio. Today, I've swapped seats. I am usually the host of this podcast, but today I'm actually going to play guest. I'm very lucky to be joined by a fantastic young entrepreneur by the name of Daniel Jimenez out of Miami, Florida. Daniel and I did a tremendous podcast that was 3 hours many years ago. And with the business turning 5 tomorrow, it's currently January 28th. Daniel and I thought it would be really cool if we sat down, reflected on everything that I've learned about this business over the last 5 years, and really take it in. Everything we built, the things we've done well, the things we haven't, and just set the tone for what we think the next half decade will look like. So Daniel, thanks for being here. I know I've been running you through your paces with prep, but I couldn't think of anyone more perfect, man, to play host today.
I appreciate the invite, man. I do want to give a little bit of commentary as someone who's known you for a few years now and has seen the journey of every day. It's really interesting seeing how it's morphed throughout the last 3 years. I remember when I met you in Chicago through one of our mutual friends, you were doing a very specific type of business. And now 3 years later, it's a completely different thing, changing the revenue model, changing the way you're framing the company.
Yeah.
And all of the little steps in between each had their pieces of success that contributed to the way that you're morphing it now. But it's just really interesting. I don't have a lot of friends that have, first of all, built a company and then been successful enough to iterate through that company for 5 years. And yeah, man, happy to see you on your journey. And I have a few questions for you.
Let's get into it, man. We got a few hours, so let's unpack it.
The first one is, what is Everyday? What was your vision for it? What does it mean?
Yeah. I like to say Everyday is a community-driven holding company. And when I say that, people typically have a few follow-up questions. One being, what's community-driven and how do you define that? And one, what's a holding company? Maybe I'll start with the latter. So a holding company for me is really just a centralized vehicle where I can house all of my entrepreneurial endeavors. I like to think of myself as a polymath or a multi-hyphenate creative artist, whatever you want to call it, serial entrepreneur. And so the holding company was the structure that I felt could best represent all of my interests. Mm-hmm. Community driven really gets to how I look at the world and really the kind of growth lever of the business. So as we'll talk about over the next several hours, everything that I do in terms of the deals I source, the people I hire, and the way that I execute, it all comes through a community driven lens, which as we talked about on our last podcast together, stemmed from me moving to America at a very young age and having to rebuild my community from scratch at Notre Dame. So that's how I describe Everyday. Is a centralized, community-driven holding company that's home to all of my entrepreneurial endeavors. And so inside of that, I do a lot of advising. I do some capital raising. I create content. I tell stories. We have a travel platform. And then I'm also actually stepping into the arena of hospitality. So that's how I'd answer this question today. But if you've tracked my content over time, and I know you've read basically everything I've put out since I started, you can see that my language has changed. But what's also...
But the content's the same.
Yeah. Like
the message is the same.
Yeah. The philosophy's been the same. And we'll get to this, but yeah, that's how I think about the business today. It's a community-driven holding company, and it's really supposed to be a space for me to lean into my range as a serial entrepreneur.
So holding company in the sense you have a lot of different business ideas that you want to execute, but they all share the same mission or a similar mission in the sense that they're community driven.
Yeah. Holding companies typically are incubating some type of IP or infrastructure through which you can then launch other businesses with ease. I call mine a personal holding company because I think a lot of holding companies are like shell corporations, no one's home, big, bulky, they don't have a face. Mm-hmm. I want mine to feel big, but personal. And then that right balance of mysterious and the imagination of what's this guy going to do next? Like, I really like to think of myself as someone on stage or more of an artist. And I want to keep the audience hooked because that's how I myself grow and how I stay interested. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's how I describe the holding company. And there are very famous examples of that out there. Gary Vaynerchuk, who I know we both really admire and has played a huge role in our developments. He's got VaynerX, right? And probably 10, 11 businesses now under Vayner. And so it's just an easy way to be able to say, okay, great. Whatever VaynerMedia learns, we can then bring into PureWell. Whatever Vayner Sports does, we can then bring into the Sasha Group. And so whatever Everyday Travel learns, I can bring into Everyday Capital. Or whatever Everyday Advisor does, I can bring into Everyday Hospitality.
Okay.
And it really came from the fact that I didn't want to be put in a box. This is a non-traditional way to build a business, right?
Most people focus on one business at a time.
Yeah, one thing, one single goal.
Do it really well, and then use that as an opportunity to build many, usually quickly thereafter, once they find success with one.
Exactly.
You know?
And so that's an interesting school of thought that absolutely works. It wasn't what felt natural to me. And so flying in the face of a lot of classic entrepreneurial advice has been difficult. People don't believe that you can have extreme focus. I think you understand that I'm just doing the same thing in a multitude of different domains. There is actually a singular focus. But
can we break that down a little bit so we can understand a little bit more what Everyday is?
Yeah.
Can you just remind us what the 5 facets of the business are?
Yeah, there's 5. So I'll start in alphabetical order. So Everyday Advisor is effectively our advisory business. And that's where I act as an intellectual and operational sparring partner to decision makers. So be that New York Times bestselling authors, award-winning content creators, chefs, universities, Fortune 500 executives. Those are all people that I've served. And I think they're interested in me because of my independence as a thinker. So that's our advisory business. Capital comes next. It sounds just like it's written. We raise capital for entrepreneurs, and we do invest and have invested in entrepreneurial endeavors that we really believe in.
So you invest, but then you also help people that you believe in raise capital themselves.
Yeah.
So that's like an advisory service in a way, right?
Exactly. You're effectively a capital consultant. But if you do that enough times, you start to build conviction in your own thesis, and you could raise your own vehicle, which we haven't raised any permanent capital yet, like a fund, but we could in the future. Content's pretty simple. This is how the business started. I started the business as a boutique creative agency. I thought that the agencies didn't have the best creative talent. I knew a lot of the top freelance independent creatives, and I was the bridge and the business development guy to their artistry. So that was fantastic. And we produce a podcast. I've run a radio show. We've created some really amazing short films. I write a lot. So that's a fantastic lever of the business. Hospitality is one of our newest domains, but this is really where I act as like a chief membership officer. And we help restaurants, full service restaurants, build loyalty programs. And then we have travel. I spent a lot of time the last 4 years hosting and curating experiences. I got really good at it at a time that no one else was convening. So we run a bespoke convening platform for executives and their teams. So if you want to host an offsite, if you want to bring together 12 of your favorite industry peers for a 3-day retreat, people come to us to do that for them. So that's the full scope of the business.
Okay. That's really interesting. Do you find that it's a challenge doing so many things at once? Do you find it challenging to balance your time and your attention?
Each of those subsidiaries was built at different times. None of them were built at the same time. So the first one that got built was probably advisory and content that kind of came together. I acted as an advisor for a New York Times bestselling author called Keith Ferrazzi. That was really the catalyst for me starting this business. That was the thing that allowed me to quit my job. To answer your question, because these things have been built at different times, it has been easier than building all of them at once.
Right.
But I've always been very disciplined. And not only is the business 5 years older, but I'm 5 years older. So I've just got very good at time blocking, at building different systems, at splitting up my work week so I make sure I'm always working on one of the 5 subsidiaries, but also just listening to my energy, right? And the gravity that I feel in the products. And usually they guide me. So I know where I need to put in more work, or actually where something's grooving for a while and I can leave it alone. So that's a little bit of that DJ nature in me. I'm always thinking about what track I want to spin next, but I'm always listening to my own beat and the beat of the business. It's not easy, but I like it. I find it very difficult to focus on one thing for a long period of time. I like to come in, get really deep, then come out, and then try and add something to that depth. That's how I think, that's how I work. I couldn't just be an academic that focused on one subject. I'd get so bored.
I definitely get where you're coming from because I'm usually doing 2 or 3 things at once. Just putting energy towards an activity, it rejuvenates you and then it helps you when you go back to that original activity.
Yep.
So you could either keep working on this thing for an extra hour or you can go feel better, come back, and now you solve the problem or you figured out a new idea. And so I guess that's the cool thing about having a business that kind of feeds off of each other or businesses that feed off of each other is that you amplify that because they're so closely related. You'll do something for capital, then you realize, oh my God, that's an advisory thing. Yes. Oh my God, this could be a hospitality service. Oh my God, I remember this when I did this thing 3 years ago. So it's really cool. Really cool.
That's a great insight. The way that I think about stacking our products is in an ideal world, any partner that we would have would at least be buying 2 or more things from us. So I even feel like from a value standpoint, we could start just as an advisory partner, but then they can add travel. Then they can add capital. Suddenly it's a 3-headed beast. They're getting triple the value. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is the reason I called the business Everyday is because I've always thought that if you ran a business properly, at its best, you would never sell it because it would enable you to live the life you want, to do the things you want, to travel to the places you've always dreamt of, and to work with the people you want. And a lot of people build businesses that become traps. So a lot of my early thought was, how could I be in business forever? What if I built something that people used every day? That could be a good start. Okay, great. For the people that I serve, these multi-hyphenate, creative entrepreneurial types, what do they do every day? They travel, they converse, they create content, they consume content, they pay taxes, they buy buildings, right? They certainly raise capital or create capital. And so that's a little bit of the method to the madness. Obviously, we don't touch all of those things yet, but that's the thesis of Everyday. If we could elevate the everyday activities of these multi-hyphenate decision makers and creatives, we might have a chance at actually being around for a while. So we've made it 5 years, which is fantastic. But obviously, I want to be around for a lot longer. And so I think that everyday nature keeps me very grounded. And then with a lot of our products, man, they're infrastructure. So our clients are learning to think and be and do the things
like you do.
Exactly. Like a client could master something that we are sharing with them or executing for them. But because we're always adding something new to the table, that's actually what keeps us around. And that's what I think is really beautiful about it. Is
not just providing a service.
Yeah, it's really a growth. And so as the partner grows, we grow. We are always adding new things as we feel necessary, such that we just have a holistic stack. So yeah, another advisor could come along, but they don't do travel. They can't raise capital for you. They won't be able to tell your story as well as we can. So that's really how I think we have some type of defensible edge. And obviously Naval says this, but he just says there's absolutely no competition for intimacy. So getting back to that element of personal holding company, I'm not using the IRS's definition. I'm really using personal in a quite literal way. You should feel like this was built for you because I was building it for myself, AKA a multi-hyphenate decision maker. And because it's just me, I can be really picky and deliberate about where I spend my time and who I decide to partner with. And that low burn and that kind of focus and discipline, that's what creates a lot of opportunity and creativity.
Is there any entrepreneur or maybe a company or just a concept that you read about or heard about that served as an inspiration for this holding company or this overarching theme in your businesses?
I think a couple stand out. I'll just list them for you and then you can react. I think Gary is one, Gary Vaynerchuk. One, how he just built Wine Library, then started again in his mid-30s and has now built VaynerX, and just watching VaynerX go from strength to strength. Some of the exits he's had. He's in resi, he's in wine, he's in sports, he's in music. I love that.
He was early in Twitter.
Yeah.
Uber.
Yeah. So I think that's fantastic. I always took a lot of inspiration from Soho House too, and what Nick Jones built from an element of community and this kind of global embassy and this space that had an aesthetic but was always different. Like you would have one membership. Soho Nashville is not the same as Soho London. That's another big inspiration. And from a kind of like operational standpoint, a lot of what Tim Ferriss did in his early days.
4-hour work weeks.
Yeah, just the way that he was able to show that you could create a leveraged business and have a life, and that the business could drive the life. That is probably the deepest rooted philosophy. Those are three big inspirations of mine. And again, the Holden company structure is the canvas through which all of those individual brands can live. I've stolen, like any great artist, from Tim's playbook, from Soho's playbook, from Gary's playbook, from a billion playbooks, to be honest. And
everyone does
come up with my own sound.
So I do want to drill down on, can you give us an example of what does a community driven company do in a certain scenario versus someone who's not community driven? Or I guess more in practice, what does community driven mean at your company?
There's a lot of rhetoric in the words I use. I fancy myself as a bit of a wordsmith, and you and I both love music, right? And I talked earlier about mystery and imagination. And so there's a lot of triple entendres in what I've built. There's a triple entendre every day. Yeah, and maybe we won't answer them now. I'll let the audience think about what they are. But there's a triple entendre around every day. There's certainly a triple entendre around community driven. Like I said earlier, at its base, it's a growth lever. It's also a lens. It's also the way that we deliver. But in my specific example, it's everything is either from, for, or delivered by the community. So from, someone introduces me to somebody and I end up working with them. They send me an interesting article. They suggest I go to this conference. I get invited to this dinner. So there's an inbuilt curation in the world I've built where people bring things to me. They bring problems to me. They bring opportunities to me, right? They bring, hey, I've got this vision. Do you think you could bring it to life? So that's that sourcing function. As I mentioned earlier, I really love working with collaborators. So inside of the community, I have a bunch of collaborators. So from a network standpoint, how am I delivering this work, given that I'm just a one-person shop? That's the other element of kind of community-driven that I think is really awesome. I think the third element, which your question gets to, is, okay, what isn't a community-driven business?
How do you guys do things differently?
We look at business as a community, right? Every business has a community of individuals, of collaborators, of staff members, right? Of investors, however you want to put it. But not a lot of businesses use the community to drive their companies. So a popular big box growth idea in venture is product-led growth. And you would summarize product-led growth by saying, oh, the technology is so good that when you've got a self-serve SaaS tool, the user will basically upgrade onto a premium plan because they'll love the features and want the features, and then they'll try and do something inside of the platform. They won't be able to do it, and then they'll want to upgrade. So like a good example of this is Descript, which is a platform I use all the time to edit my podcasts, right? You only get X number of hours of transcription. You don't get the Ask AI functions unless you pay for the premium package. That's product-led growth.
Exactly.
The product is driving the consumer into a higher tier and a deeper relationship. So what I'm saying is that's all well and good. But actually, if you really zero in on a lot of businesses, that's not going to be the way that they grow. So like in the media space, that's not how a business is going to grow. There's one mini paywall that I've seen inside of a media environment. The FT has got a subscription and it's also got a premium subscription called Lex. It's the most annoying thing ever to see in a media environment. I'm already paying for something and there's something behind this like extra wall. It just doesn't work the same way as these. What I think media companies should actually be doing is thinking about growing through the community. Hey, Cornelius, we see you read these stories, but how much would you pay if we actually put you in the room with the individuals who wrote them and were quoted in them? So that's one example. Hospitality, another one, right? Fashion. How do these brands grow? You see something on Instagram, or someone says, hey, that's a really nice shirt. Or they say, you got to try this great restaurant. There's nothing about the product inherently. The meal isn't getting you to come back and spend $1 million. It's the feeling that your girlfriend gets when you bring her there, or your wife, or your mum and dad, or the fact that like this is the spot in Miami to go out. Growth is usually other people telling you that you should do this or buy this thing. And that most businesses aren't going to be VC technology-backed businesses. There's this great book, Illusions of Entrepreneurship, where venture has become so loud on the microphone that everybody thinks that those playbooks apply to everybody.
TechCrunch reporting on every fucking funding round.
There's 33 million. There's 33 million small businesses in America, right? 33 million.
Seriously.
There's not 33 million venture-backed companies in the world. I think that community-driven is the most natural way to build a business without losing yourself. It's a great practice because it always puts you back in touch with the people who you're around. And that doesn't mean you can't take inspiration from product-led, but I just don't think product-led works for anything outside of technology. And the world is not technology. The world's a little bit more fundamental than that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah.
But that's what really powers the holding company. And that's what drives the growth. There's no product-led growth in the holding company. Everything comes from a consumer being like, oh, I'd love if I had someone who could do this for me. And then I decide if I want to go build it.
But wouldn't you? I guess it's both. Like the product is like you, if someone says, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have someone do this for me? You do that really well. So they're paying you for the product. But you're saying that the fact that people are referring each other is the community piece.
Yeah,
right?
It's the way. So the product-led growth, because nothing that I do sits inside of a beautiful tech platform.
You're saying more like software.
Yeah. The user's not going up to the upgrade or the enterprise plan, right? We have to create that product motion for ourselves. And the way that we do that is in community with the partner through conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Descript's not speaking to me ever, right? It doesn't have a voice.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? It's ironic. It gets a little bit heady and literal. But again, I'm trying to use these words to provoke curiosity, provide definition, but also leave space, leave some kind of gray space. And again, there's a lot of people who'll be like, that's not how you build a business. So I guess I'm just proving that like, well, you can do it other ways.
As long as you're making money, you can do it.
Exactly. For me, this is one great big experiment, right? How I make this happen and the legacy that I build in doing that's absolutely everything to me. Just making money doesn't really interest me. It's, could I do it this way? That's never really been done before. Right. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely. I do want to break down something that you said. You mentioned when you were talking about the types of people or businesses that you've serviced, you mentioned sparring as a service.
Yep.
As something that you offered. What does that mean?
So I want to give credit to Venkatesh Rao for kind of giving me this language. He wrote 2 great books, The Art of Gig, Vol 1 and 2. But sparring, again, is just like it sounds. I'm going to really bore you today, Daniel, and the audience. But every word I use is effectively how it sounds. So sparring, what is sparring, right? It's 2 boxers or fighters or 2 people basically practicing the motions of attack and defense in a live fight. Mm-hmm. So their pacing, their power, their rhythm, right? They are trying to put themselves in what we would call a live match situation. And so I think a lot of business is role playing and figuring out when you're in a certain arena or in a corner of the ring and you have an opponent or a collaborator or a boss or a team member who's showing you a pose, what do you do? And so sparring is the act of trying a bunch of different things. But the goal is to learn. The goal is not to knock out the opponent. You leave that for the fight. You leave that for the live match situation. And so, yeah, Venkat has built a really cool sparring business effectively, where he acts as an intellectual sparring partner to really interesting people.
Can you give me an example?
So I mentioned Keith earlier. When Keith came to me, the phrase, or I guess the prompt he brought me was, I don't know what my next book should be.
Okay.
He says, I want you to figure it out. And I was like, okay. So why did he come to me with that? He'd written a New York Times bestselling book, Never Eat Alone. 5 years later, he'd followed it up with another book that didn't do so well. And so when he was meeting me, it was like, hey, I need to nail this next album. So he came to me for that because, one, it takes a very unique individual to be able to answer that question, because you have to not only be able to process everything that Keith has said, you also need to be trusted enough to be like, hey man, this is actually original and quality, and this stuff doesn't work yet or hasn't been proven, or someone else is saying this stuff better than you. So that's a great example of, because I've read so widely and I think I have a good feel for what's been said yet, what hasn't been said. I was in a great position to spar with Keith and push him, right? On, hey, I actually don't think that idea is that good.
Yeah.
I think the time
you don't want a yes man. That's the key part about sparring. You don't come in to just validate whatever that person thinks or reinforce whatever process they already have. You're there to actually challenge them and make them better. Intellectual Dave Goggins.
I love that. If you think about the fighting analogy, who does Conor McGregor choose to spar with him, right? It all depends on their opponent. And so that's a really interesting thing to think about. But Venkat goes on to say basically that he thinks good sparrers or sparring partners have three qualities. The first is they have enough domain knowledge to be able to think with you and talk with you as an insider. So I can use Keith's language because I've read all of his books. If I said the word rap, I'm not talking about the genre. I'm talking about the relationship action plan that Keith Ferrazzi popularized, right? So that's a good example. The second is then you have no conflicts. So this is something that I talk about all the time in our advisory service. There are therapists, there are parents, there are spouses, there are siblings, there are bosses. At the end of the day, all of those individuals, no matter how much they love you, they've all got a bit of a conflict. The incentive's not quite right.
What do you mean by that? Like a conflict with what?
Your parents want you to be happy. Your spouse wants you to be stable. Coaches and therapists, they're looking for a diagnosis or for you to learn a framework. Your boss is looking for you to make their life easier. Everything that they tell you comes after those things. A lot of the counsel that's exchanged in those moments, whilst it can be valuable, it doesn't really stand up to this type of decision maker because they don't have enough context. So that's a big part of why I think I'm such a good holistic advisor, for lack of a better term, is because I don't have any conflicts. And Venkat agrees with that. So if you have the domain knowledge to think like an insider, talk like an insider, you don't have any conflicts, then what you really need is the ability to like process quickly, think on your feet, and have a big intellectual capacity. And that's something that Venkatesh says you cannot teach, which is really interesting. So I don't know where that came from with me. I maybe think back to just the dinners I had as a kid. We sat down to dinner every night as a family. I went to a great school. I always felt like I was a good speaker. I was always forced to articulate ideas. I think that's what comes. But yeah, you're only as good as your last spar session, which I also like. If you're slow, if you're off the pace, if you're not challenging the opponent, you're done. So there's
they're going to get bored.
Yeah, there's a beauty to that of just like, you have to mirror your opponent's growth. But yeah, those books are fantastic. I hadn't actually read those until this year because I'd always hated the word consultant, coach. I was like, I don't think I'm either of those things. I'm definitely not a therapist, nor am I trained to be one. Now, a lot of people use those words when they speak to me because they get similar feelings that they might get. Or they think I do what that they've been told that one of those people is supposed to do for them. But yeah, I love sparring partner because, yeah, you better see that right.
It's a good marketing spin on it.
It's beautiful storytelling, right?
It really is, because it paints the picture. It paints the picture of the type of service you're going to provide. When someone says consultant, you don't know the personality of the consultant or the style of the consultant. Sparring partner is very direct. Hey guys, I'm going to challenge you. This is going to be an intellectual exercise for both of us.
Yeah. And the goal is not to knock you out, right? This is about us learning together. It's like putting that thing into motion. That's what I love. And I shared this in some of my writing, but I wasn't a chess player growing up, but I did go to chess club for a short period of time. And a lot of the chess practice was, okay, here's a position on the board. How would you win the game from this position? That is all of sparring. Hey, this happened. Or we're about to do this. Or I think I want to do this. Based on that scenario, how do we attack? And and so what's really cool is if you get in with someone that you can build with over time, you are then indexing everything you say tomorrow against everything that's already happened. And that creates its own level of stickiness and personalized nature of just, if you were to then bring in another sparring partner tomorrow,
There's a
you're
lot of too much.
yeah, you're losing out on 5 years of context. And
It's a reason why you don't want to fire an employee that's doing really well and has been there for a long time. You're going to have to replace them.
yeah,
How are you going to find that level of quality after so many years of getting good at the job?
yeah. So
Yeah.
Sparring's been transformative, man, and yeah, I think it's a new world. I think Venkat put words to it, but I think it's a new world of advising that's beyond being a consultant, beyond being a coach, executive coach. And I think it's what most people need. Like you need someone who can
The challenger bullshit.
Yeah.
Straight up, bro.
And then what I think I've added to what Venkat does is then I'm actually also an operational sparring partner too, because I've done a lot of the things that I'm suggesting.
I think that's such an important part because there's a lot of gurus out there and a lot of people who speak well, they look well, and then they're offering a similar type of service, but they don't have the experience. They're not doing it in real time as they're also doing the coaching bit.
Yeah.
And that's what really fascinates me about your business is that you're walking the walk as you talk the talk. And not everyone does.
Venkat, in his book, he says that's the difference between being a guru and a pundit. And so I'm much more guru than I am pundit. And I know much to sometime your dissatisfaction, you would love me to be a little bit more public. And there's time for that. But right now, I just want to build the stories and the reps. Right. That's all I care about. But yeah, sparring has been transformational. And I hope this is coming through. But when you find words that work, that is like 90% of the battle. If only I'd known personal holding company at the beginning. If only I'd known every day. If only I'd known sparring. I think I could have sped up a lot of my development and our growth.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have gotten here if you knew that from the beginning in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the slower you build, the slower you fall. The slower you build, the harder it is for someone else to replicate. So a lot of these people that get big overnight, they don't know how they got big overnight. Also, that means that someone else can get big overnight. Mm-hmm. So
they don't have a good base.
They don't have a good base. So there's this element of lindiness. The longer that we are here in this space, the more likely we are to be around and doing this review again in 5 years, just building on things that if people started today, it would take them a long time. But there's a lot of space here, right? And there's a lot of space, I think, for this playbook to be executed in other domains. But, and we'll get to it, it's not without hardship. It's a lot of quiet discipline and a lot of being misunderstood. But I finally feel like I've got the words now and the brand. Maybe we can go into that. That's really got some timeliness. And so that's exciting for me. I haven't had that basically for the whole 5 years. So I'm excited to see what I do with those things now. I actually have the language.
But it's interesting when I think about your business and you as an entrepreneur. I don't know if it's like a Mortal Kombat character, everyone has like their own specs. Everyone's like a different.
Well, their own sleeve. I've been watching a lot of Altered Carbon. Yeah.
And yours is so interesting because I think, and we talked about this the first time we met, I think of a Jay-Z lyric when I think about Cornelius McGrath. I think of, I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. And I feel like your business it's just you. It's just the things that interest you, the expertise that you've built doing things that you love, right? The way you communicate, it's all very personal. It's just Cornelius McGrath is just this smart dude who talks well, knows a lot, operates well. Let's hire him to do all these things that he's already done. As opposed to, hey, I want to go sell curtains, or I want to go start a restaurant that serves food. They're all amazing, but it's different, right? It's and I feel like we connected on this when we first met. It was like the idea of everyone has something to offer. And the more you build yourself up as like a person, as an intellectual, the more business opportunities you have. But you have so many skills that you build up in just being a curious individual that at some point someone's going to want to pay you for them. But not everyone thinks I'm able to charge for what I know.
Yes.
Because, I didn't go to school for it. I don't have this certification. I haven't done a job for this. I've been working in this industry. But you just get it. You're just like, dude, like all you need is the willingness, the expertise, and the confidence, and people will come. And I don't know. That's why I am so happy seeing your journey, because it's the same philosophy that I have. I try to monetize all of my skills.
Yep.
And I have this long-term vision of doing so. And quite literally, you're probably the only friend that I have that thinks in a similar vein. Everyone else is trying to build a very like a product business. They're not thinking of themselves as a product. You know
Beautifully
what I
said.
mean?
Beautifully said, man. The Startup Review is one of my favorite books, one of the most timeless books. And what you just said was the Startup Review in a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Think of yourself as a business with assets, aspirations, market realities. Build the product of you. That's the thing.
Pivots.
That's hopefully the thing you're going to have forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's some examples, but you're right. We're still at this really early phase where Startup Review is 10 years old. So it is a young idea. And obviously technology is started to enable so much of this. But yeah, thank you for recognizing that.
All that.
I think it's the best type of business. Like, I think there was a moment, and maybe we can go here, where I was convinced. I had to ignore a lot of the naysayers of, oh, you can't do that. That's not how a proper business is built, lifestyle business, belittling. And actually, it's funny. I read this great article, I guess transcript a week ago by Jeremy Giffen. He was on the O'Shaughnessy Ventures podcast. And
That's a great podcast.
Yeah, this guy's run a
Notre Dame grad.
Yeah, this guy Jeremy, he ran tiny, big holding company, tech oriented. He's like, a perfect business is a business where you speak money into existence. And I was like, fuck, I've had that all along. How did I let all these SaaS guys, all these VC-backed tech founders convince me that they had something better than I did? And obviously, the shine has come off venture in a big way, but they nearly convinced me.
You're close to quitting?
Never quitting, but I think when things don't go the way you want and you're on the non-traditional path, the thing screaming at you is, because you broke the rules, because you broke the rules. And it is like, it comes to you deep at night. And then, of course, you get no sympathy from anybody. But seeing Jeremy, and it's funny when content comes to you, and it was actually recommended by a guy I was on the phone with that I hadn't spoken to in years. So it's funny, he heard me speaking and he was like, oh, this reminds me of what so-and-so said. I'm like, oh, I'd never seen that. I wish I had seen that all those years ago. Obviously, well, the podcast wasn't out then. But yeah, he just says, look, the perfect business is the one that speaks money into existence. He's like, a lot of those early M&A banks, consulting firms, they had it right. And we've all kind of moved away from that. And it doesn't make any sense.
So, had it right in what respect?
Business, like most fundamentally, if you could open your mouth and generate cash, that's the best business of all time, right? You've got 99.9%, you got 100% profit margin, right?
Yeah, you just work whenever you want. You're like, I want to make money today. And then you go
and your
make
time
money.
to value is zero. Like, it's immediate. It's instantaneous. There's no build. There's no AEs. There's no engineering. There's no product. It's just incredibly brilliant. And so obviously there's a fine line with that, right? Back to that guru versus pundit. But that hit me. And so I was like, fuck, man, I think I've had a perfect business all along, but I have taken a great deal of inspiration from bottoms up SaaS, B2B2C businesses. And as I think about philosophy, revenue model, business model, all different things, I still like to steal from the technology playbook, right? In terms of how I bill, how I charge, how I talk about expansion revenue, aka hooking in more than 2 products. Like, all of that is really great SaaS-based, technology-based thinking. But yeah, the perfect business, at least according to Jeremy Giffen, is the one that speaks money into his existence. And I've got an element of that with some special sauce on the top, right? That's the other thing, is I think I actually give my partners a stage upon which they can go and then build their own communities. And that's magic.
You said partners, not clients.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
One of the other things that I've struggled with is pricing and value, and how do you price? And so if you look at, like, I would love to have 0 clients, like never. Like, I'd always prefer to have partners over clients. And partnership has like a deeper aspect to it, right? There's a longevity to it. There's an element of sharing, of back and forth. And there's that kind of symbiotic growth, which I think fits with community-driven, sparring. Whereas a client, that feels more of like a servitude, limited time period relationship where there's a little bit of a hierarchy, right? I like to try and look for partners. It's okay if they start as clients, But at my best, I'd love partners.
You want them to think of your relationship as a partnership.
Because it's what I can give. I'm running this as if it could be a partnership. And then I'm giving you things that we can use together to make money. And that completely redefine, like therapists, coaches. Okay, you can ascribe some value to them of, oh, they gave me this idea and that helped me do that. But I could help you build a product that you actually monetize, right? So you can look at what you spend on us, but then the ROI as a partner could be way higher than that. And so that would be my goal, right?
I actually think that's brilliant. And honestly, I feel like other service-based or other services could also frame it as partnerships. Like you mentioned therapists.
Yeah.
They could also frame it as partnerships because they're invested in the success of their clients, right? And I don't know, the framing of partnership is more, it adds more meaning to the relationship than just client. Oh, they're my client. They pay me. It's no, like you're doing deeper work than just receiving money from this person.
Yeah. And a lot of these business models in the counsel space are time-based or length-based. And so that fucks up incentives, right? Because the longer you are with the therapist, the more money the therapist makes, 1 hour at a time.
Right.
And at some point, right? Not that you'd stop going, but you would have worked on those things to then create something. And I think a lot of the therapy people need comes from the ability to not have the difficult conversations or do the life design piece or quiet the self-talk. Actually quieting and improving those things all comes through action. Yes, you can talk it out to diagnose, but there has to be some action. And so I like being framed as almost this operational partner, which is, okay, great. Like we've talked about the fact that you want...
How are we going to execute?
How are we going to execute? And then, yeah, I want to be paid to help you execute. And if you don't, and look, I've worked with a lot of people, man, who loved me and then didn't, right? Because at one point, I am the guy that sees you for who you aren't yet, but could be, and who you want to be. But if you don't become that person, then I'm a reminder of what you aren't. And that can really hurt people. And that's what I've realized about this game is I was convinced it was net negative at the beginning. So I'm like, geez, there's always going to be more people that like talk than actually walk. But I think if you can get the right partners, it almost makes everything more special. And there's just not going to be that many, right? I think
you can build a great business off of a few people.
Yeah.
And they're generating a lot of money from them.
Yeah. I've had a lot of relationships that haven't gone past 6 months or 6 weeks. Even with Keith, I gave him a recommendation that he didn't agree with. That's so fine. There's people in business who are like, oh no, you should have just seen out the contract. You would have got more money. It's that then denigrates my integrity. Like I came up with the answer. He didn't like it. Still my answer. And so that's the other thing about some of the work I do sometimes is like, sometimes the answers aren't that nice.
Mm-hmm. You can't control if people are going to take your recommendation.
No, but I think over time that will become my biggest strength is I will not only shoot you straight, but then I will give you everything I've got to help you create that outcome. Not just like, I'm going to say hard things and then leave you alone.
Right.
I'm going to say, no, here's a hard truth. Let's attack it this way. These are the best people, practices, playbooks that I've seen. And that feels really harmonious, man. That another thing from Venkat, at the end of the day, you should feel good about the idea of doing whatever you're doing forever. So you got to set this up so it feels good, right? You can be traversing the map, but the real challenge is how are you as excited about the 10,000 step as you were about the first step? I can absolutely like align with that 5 years in. It's hard to do things you don't like, man. As we all know, don't bring any of that stuff into your business. If you really think about making a go of this, right? Yeah, he's been a great inspiration. And yeah, I'm really happy we unpacked that kind of difference there between advisor, therapist, coach, because it's definitely been an issue, right? Even though those are humongous markets. So it's this classic chicken egg. There are these humongous markets, but I think people are paying for the wrong thing.
It might come down to the framing. You know, framing is powerful.
Giving Sparring a good 5 years to really run at it now And now I can talk about everything that I've done through that lens because I was sparring from 2018. And I started sparring when I was 22, man. That's crazy. I sparred with one of the best authors of all time. And then I've now built a career of that. So in 5 more years, I'm just going to have 5 years more of stories and growth. And that's the thing. As we always say, right? Everything makes sense looking backwards. It never makes sense looking forwards.
Ain't that the truth? Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild.
Do you have any dream partners? Maybe let me break that down actually, because I know you're multifaceted. So do you have a dream partner in music, in sports, in intellect? So maybe like an academic or a scientist, and then in business.
Yes. I actually have a dream client list.
You do? Like on your notes app?
Yeah, 100%. I think business, Lorene Powell Jobs has been interesting to me for a while now. She runs the Emerson Collective. She was Steve Jobs' wife.
Okay.
She owns The Atlantic, and she also runs a cool immigration business as well.
Okay.
So I would say Lorene is like the business one. Sports is Man United, but it would be sick to work with the Wrexham guys, Rob McElhenney, and Ryan Reynolds. Like that would be incredible. Inter Miami would be sick. I'd love to work with Bex. Gary Neville, honestly. Gary Neville. I'd love to work with Gary Neville. He's building such a cool business. Multifaceted.
What does he do?
He started something called the Relentless Group, and they own hotels. They built a university in Manchester.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, Gary's a Sky Sports presenter. He's also now on Dragon's Den. So he's across hospitality, education, media, right? 3 things I absolutely adore. What was one of your other, I feel like I'm missing one of your categories. Music. Oh, that's a good one.
That's a hard one.
That's a really hard one, man.
I might have to go by genre.
Yeah. I'll tell you one person that I'd be really interested to work with. I reached out to this woman, Karina Evans, years ago. She shot God's Plan by Drake. She's fascinating, and she blew up from that video. I think it'd be cool to work with Karina. Jay Electronica fascinates me.
I love Jay Electronica.
Oh, mate, I played Fruits of the Spirit on the mix last night. It's 1 minute, 30 seconds. I had no idea him and Erykah Badu were together for 5 years and had a few kids together. That blew my mind. Yeah.
They have kids?
They have kids, yeah. He signed to Rock Nation in 2008, 2009. And then he put his album out on March 13th, 2020, which was like the start of COVID. And so he didn't produce anything for over a decade, but he was signed to Rock Nation. So I'll just say Jay Electronica, but like Tom Misch, Lil Kana, like I really like Tiny Desk. I've actually been having some chats with the founder of Tiny Desk.
Word? That's awesome.
That's
Tiny Desk is one of the coolest concepts I've ever seen.
We'll talk about the radio show in a bit, but that's driven a lot of my inspiration for the sunset mixes and, you know, the everyday radio mixes here in my apartment. This is my dojo, man. This is my Empire State of Mind. But Tiny Desk, yeah, I mean, what a concept. Just incredible.
What's your favorite Tiny Desk? Usher. Wait, is that where the meme came from? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't actually know the meme. I'm a bit off social media these days. I think it's Usher. He brought on this amazing singer, Ryan something.
Okay.
The way that Usher puts these 2 guys on completely selflessly is just incredible. And then his voice. Oh,
he just let other people perform during his set?
He had 2 singers, and I really should look them up, or maybe you can look them up while I'm talking. But one was called Ryan. And they're like legit singers in their own right. Like I recognize them. But the way he introduces them, the way that he puts them on, they sing the intros and the melodies. It was a really beautiful collaboration. Because if I got on a stage, that's exactly what I'd do. I'd look for an opportunity to bring 2 or 3 guys with me, you know? So I think that's probably my answer. I could easily change that answer based on the day. There's just so many good ones.
There's so many good pieces of, there's so many good musicians. So many good
man. But yeah, that, again, for me, why Tiny Desk? Why have I tried to replicate Tiny Desk? Because it's a timeless asset. Those songs have been played millions of times before, but that version's never been done. And there's something really beautiful in that, I think.
100%. So I have a few more questions. I know we deviated a bit. I want to go back to the concept of how you do business,
Yeah.
some of the philosophy behind your business. And I realized that an overarching theme in your business and also you as a person is the concept of curation,
Yep.
right? Whether it's through your radio show, you're curating music, through your writing, you're curating ideas, your newsletter in particular. It's just like an amalgamation of like really interesting visuals
Yeah.
that you're not going to see anywhere. They're not on the internet,
Yeah.
right? You took pictures of them and you put them together. So anyway, back to the idea, and you can explain in a second. Why do you believe in curation? What makes curation an asset as it relates to your business?
I think it has everything to do with taste. And I think taste is something that can't be taught. It can only come from experience.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about taste, you're getting hyper specific. And in the hyper specific, you get all the rewards. So a great example of taste is like what wines you choose to drink at what times of day with what types of food. What music do you play? But what song do you play before and after the next one? And how did you decide? That there's something ethereal to that's just beautiful. And yeah, I just feel like so much of our curiosity now has been outsourced to algorithms who are serving us content that we will like, yes, based on our prior history, but we don't actually control the metrics upon which they are serving those things. So they're trying to get you to watch as long and as much as you can, but that can fly in the face of what you need. And so there's no barrier. And so I feel like because everything's become so algorithmically driven, curation's the only thing that stands between us and the machines. And that human element of curation, I don't think can be beaten. You look at the enrich feature of Spotify playlists, I can't stand that shit. But I love using the radio and playing songs that you might like. It's a very similar discovery process, but in the latter, I feel more in control. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, it's just like curation is all that's left for human beings, because there's an element of the ethereal, the non-logical. The way I go from Tom Mission Comedy and Bibio to J Electronica. There's no algorithm that's gonna, like, if I'm really
they're completely different genre, different BPMs, different instruments. Like there's no algorithm that would find the similarity, but
exactly,
you have a more abstract idea for what you want to do.
Exactly. And that's where innovation comes from. And again, I think we've forgotten that. And because a lot of people have now built businesses on these algorithms, their creative process has actually become what's going to do well, what's going to get clicks, not actually what I think curation is, which is what's interesting to me and what works. And let's experiment, right? And so I use this example in my Q4 letter of Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre was the first person to remix 2 songs with 2 different tempos. No one had heard him do his Mr. Postman mix the way he did it. And the club owner talks about everybody grooving confused. And I just feel like curation for me is all about grooving confused. But it's actually showing real mastery of a topic where you know you can break the rules. I know what J Electronica song can come after, right? Bibio with Town and Country. Like no one's putting together that West Midlands singer and then the Big Easy's J Electronica. And I don't know how to tell you how I know to do that. I just do it because I think it's cool. And that speaks to enough people. So curation for me now has become everything. And I'm a guy that's always going to put taste over AI. Like I will use AI in my process for sure, but I will never let AI replace my taste buds. Like I'm still going to go and try and sample these things on my own. And so, yeah, I just feel like it's a return to control. And I don't believe that the algorithm's putting the best content in front of me. Always. I just think it's putting the thing that will make me stay on there the longest, which isn't really the goal. You can get lost in the algorithm, but getting lost in a bookshop and discovering stuff, that's actually sick. Because it's you making the decisions, right? Like
shout out Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah.
I have a lot of memories as a kid just going to Barnes and Nobles with friends and just with the purpose of getting lost. We were just like, let's see what we find.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to personal, man. Personal holding company. Like I want to build a brand that like, yeah, this was written by me. This is my voice. This was not written by AI. there'll be a whole brand in that of, yes, I sent you this email. Because if you outsource taste, what do you have left?
Yeah.
Like, what do you fucking have? You have nothing.
Like taste is personality in a way.
Yeah,
Like,
it really is. And yeah, I've enjoyed that. And in the way that I would create readings for people, or I could create a dinner or a menu or a playlist or a locale, I'm just really here to show my range. And like I said, the reason I can curate is because I have all the patterns and I'm living the moment that I am presenting. I've lived in this space for 5 years. I've listened to music basically every day. I know what the sun looks like. I know what the sky is going to look like. I know the mood I'm in. So I can tap into that, right? A machine is not ever going to be able to do that and then talk to you about it, right?
At least I hope not.
Yeah, the AI can go over the audio and make it sound better. That's fine, but it's not going to replace what I choose to put in it. And yeah, I think a lot of taste making and curation is basically the output of this business, right? People are choosing to self-select into the way I'm tasting and curating things. And that's cool. I basically get paid to taste. And then people trust my curation. So one of the things I did, actually, this would be a fun topic. Like, one of the things I can do for clients is if they have Christmas gifts, a lot of people come to me and be like, hey, I need 10 books, 5 bottles of wine, and maybe a few records. And I've got this type of person. This person's really into Tim Ferriss and Entrepreneurship 101. This person's really into music. This person's really into history. And they just trust me to go into the world. Yeah, and just pick out stuff that I know will reflect on them well, will come across as a really nice gift, and will be something that hopefully that person hasn't seen before. And so that's cool. That's rare and valuable, which is all I strive to be and aim to be over time.
So another important question, because I don't really know what you mean by this. We talked about it a little bit before. You've alluded to the fact that you work clean, but I never really double clicked on that. What does that mean?
So Work Clean is a book by a guy called Dan Charnas. And what's really cool about Dan, actually, is he wrote another amazing book on Jay Dilla, the amazing American producer, called Dilla Time. And the concept of Work Clean is simple. Dan says that effectively in the knowledge economy, we have not created a structure for how we work. And the whole book is an investigation into one of the few spaces in the world that actually has structure for how they work. And that's actually the culinary hospitality space. And so he talks about the concept of mise en place, which is the idea of everything in its place. And so the book is basically an investigation into how top chefs curate their recipes, expedite, run their kitchens. And it is so controlled. When you've got hundreds of orders and burning hot stovetops, you have to have a structure. And they always talk about having a clean workspace, a clean workstation. That's the beginning of mise en place, effectively.
I need to read that. What book was that?
Work Clean by Dan Charnas. And so Dan then takes a stab at what could work clean mean for the knowledge economy? What are the things that we could take from hospitality, and then how would we apply them to the knowledge economy? And so I'm a knowledge worker. I think that was another great thing that Venkat did. He just leveled up the conversation around gig work. It's not just Uber and food delivery. So I read that book a few years ago now. I'd already been pretty big into the personal productivity space. I think it's another reason when I get hired, that's a big value I can bring. And so, yeah, I would say I've been working clean now for probably about 18 months, I would say. I was pretty good before, but Dan introduced a few concepts to me that he got from top chefs. We can talk about those if you're interested.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about them.
And so back to earlier, right? When you were like, hey, how do you focus? It's because I work clean. That's how a restaurant with 36 different unique items can get your food out like that. It's all in the preparation and the setup.
Right.
So that's what working clean means.
Do you have any hacks you can share? Like a piece of software that you use, that, or like a process that you've adopted?
The fundamentals for me all start with time blocking. So deep work, time blocking, I think they come together. And so what that means is taking a to-do list and then transitioning that to-do list into blocks of time. And there is a theory that every block should be 90 minutes because that's about as long as the human brain can really focus. And the idea is that if you build your week around these blocks, these deep blocks of 90 minutes or more, that's how you can produce great work. And Cal Newport kind of became famous for this concept because that's how he says he wrote like 30 research papers in a year or something crazy like that. So that's really the fundamentals. And I can show a visual of my calendar as well after this. But that's number one, is time block. So never have a to-do list. Anything on your to-do list has to have a block of time that's associated with how long it's going to take you to do that thing. Because if you then transition it to time, you actually know what you have. So that's number one, is you always know how much capacity you have.
That's really interesting. I get stressed the fuck out by my to-do list, dude.
Yep.
Like it never ends.
It has no concept in time. So it's like this never-ending thing. And then there's no plan to ever get it done because it doesn't exist in time. So you need to bring it in. That process I've done for 5 or 6 years, and I have time blocked and logged all my time. So the other great thing about time blocking is, and something that I read by the CEO of Instacart on First Round Review, is this concept of buffer time. So a 2-hour block on a Friday, that's just buffer time. So the idea being that you're going to do some things this week that are going to take longer than you think. So actually build in a buffer between you and the end of your week. So never schedule at 100%. Always schedule at 80%. And you see this in hospitality with the flow of the meal, right? The servers aren't, they take your order all at once, certain kitchens, and then they course it out. Or they come and do entrees, mains, desserts. And then the whole kitchen's able to pivot, right? Turns is what they call it in the dining room. So everything's built around that schedule. And if you speak to top chefs, they know there are periods where they've just got to lock in for like 10 minutes and expedite a fuck ton of shit. And then the rest of the evening's perfect. That's a cool concept on buffer time. There's something else called the daily meze, and that's basically a cleanup. The daily meze for knowledge work is go into your downloads folder, sort through everything, any physical papers on your desk, clean everything, wipe it down like you're cleaning your knives, put things into the trash folder, look at your day, what didn't you get done, reorganize the rest of the week against the time blocks, then make decisions around communication. Hey, I can't make drinks on Thursday now because I've got to get this done, or vice versa. So that daily meze is just like that check-in of, okay, great, this was my intention. How did I do against it? And then the weekly review is just I do this on Saturday mornings. I get up early, go grab a coffee, donut, have the football in the background. That's when you go through your phone logs. That's when you color code your calendar. Maybe I can show a visual, but I color code everything against the holding company. And at the beginning of every quarter, I'll be like, okay, this is the amount of time I think I need to spend on these things. So I'll build my schedule around that. But then on a weekly and monthly basis, when I'm reviewing, I'm comparing against what I think I would do. So did I exercise 6 hours? Am I putting in more than 5 hours on content? Is there something cropping up that I didn't anticipate in this quarter, such as a fundraise, right? That's the beauty of the schedule. And the idea being that if you can curate the right daily practices, then you can build a schedule that's always going to allow you to deliver. And so it's crazy, right? It's if you go to the gym for 12 weeks and you eat your 175 grams of protein and you do your 5-3-1, like you're probably going to build muscle and you're probably going to get ripped, right? And if you sleep and don't drink and stuff, but doing all those things at once is really hard.
Yeah.
And so I think what worked clean is just, look, we've got so much digital detritus. We've got notifications popping up. We've got overflowing inboxes. Google Drive's a mess. Apple Notes page a mess. And then we've got this to-do list that doesn't exist in time. So a lot of my work now is just refactoring and processing everything that goes down. So that's one concept. Another concept that I think will blow your mind is the difference between immersive and process time. And so the example he gives is immersive time is chopping vegetables. Like you have to chop the onion. And when you're chopping the fucking onion, you can't be doing anything else. Otherwise, you're going to do it bad, or you're going to fuck up your fingers. But with process time, you can actually leave that task in the background. So a big thing, and you might have seen this in films like Burnt, is you have to get the pan hot. Or I'll give you a great example. When I come home from the gym, this clocked to me like 2 weeks ago. So I'll go work out at 11 every day, come back, have lunch. When I come back, I have a protein shake and I shower, and then I have lunch. But while I'm showering, I could have put the water on for the pasta, and the water could have been boiling. So process time, the sucky thing about it is, if I forget to put the water on, I have to wait 12 minutes from that point when I could have been doing something else. Then I come out of the shower, and then I can put the pasta
water's ready.
in. And so that difference between immersive and process time, you can think about your business in that way. So, for example, I think this is great. I've hired some editors on the content side. So every weekend I will assign new transcripts for them to work through. But during the week, I don't even think about that. On Fridays when they deliver the work, I pop up, I look at it for 5 minutes, and then I reassign. So I have to be immersive for a second, but then it goes into process. And I've given it to someone else. So then it's in the background. But if I don't assign them on that Saturday, I'm just then delaying by 7 days me getting through my content backlog. So I think those two ideas together just work really well. And yeah, I can't talk enough about the review, man. Like, you forget what you do, you forget who calls you, you write down that random note in your Apple Notes. I think it's the way I've started to think about it is just, let me remember what I was actually thinking this week before the world went crazy and I was asked to do. Let me get back in touch with myself.
That's such a powerful concept, dude. I've been trying to do that for myself a little bit, but I find it just so hard to do it consistently. You do this every day?
Yeah. So let me show you my calendar. So I change my calendar every 90 days. When I say that, what I mean is I want to make sure that whatever my demands on my time are, that my calendar is reflective of that. So if I have a different quarterly goal or project or need, I need to be able to pivot. And so this calendar has been the one that I have been pursuing since January 1st. And it has a couple of different elements that over the last 5 years I've known I've needed. So there are some basic things, right? Like exercise. We already covered the daily mezzi. And then obviously, I have 5 different subsidiaries. And right now I'm not really doing any outbound on the capital side, just because we're taking a break there for right now. But this is really what my week looks like. So I'm in the process of refactoring our catalog. So all of our backlog of content. This won't be a forever thing. And actually it wasn't on my calendar until I did my weekly review this week. And I was like, I've actually been spending an hour each morning basically refactoring my calendar. And I was able to see that. So this is actually how a week looks, right? Versus how it looks like execution. But the good news is if something changes, right? Like I have a call here on the day of refactoring catalogs, I can move it around. And then I have the color coding so I know exactly where I'm spending my time. And so
the time insights are cool.
Yeah. And so
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So I've time blocked. I haven't color coded for the whole time, but I've time blocked for the last 3-4 years now. But at least for last year, I did it using this system. So I was easily able at the end of this year to be like, hey, I spent my time here. This is where I need to double down. And so what's been a huge hack for me is I'm like, yo, I know if I reach out to 2 new buyers for each of our 4 subsidiaries every single week, I'm going to have a pipeline that's off the charts. I'm going to be able to grow a great business. If I spend an hour on refactoring their catalog and have Upwork freelancers doing my transcripts, if I write every day, train, lunch, I've won the day by 1 p.m. And then I have saved Wednesdays and Thursdays for calls. So that's, I think, a good example of how all these things, buffer time, weekly review, and you'll see weekly reviews here, but like I've often just been doing it here. And so it's easy to move around. So it gives you freedom in like a really
smart
cool way.
And you really get a good sense of what you do.
Yeah. And how
because we all have a lot of things we want to do, but it's just so hard to really just keep it all in your head.
Yeah. And then, okay, if I've been asked to take something on, what is the cost of that? And then how do I need to price the product accordingly? That's been really awesome for me. And that's what it means to work clean, is to have a real sense of this is how long it takes to make this dish. If I've got all these requests coming in, this is how we're going to process them. And that's why I love restaurants. Like, they're amazing works of art. And nothing we do on a work basis is nearly as complicated. So actually, they're the perfect individuals to mirror and steal from.
100%. 100%. So I do want to transition away from like the ideas behind the business,
Yeah.
and talk a little bit more about the business itself. Uh, Maybe a little bit of your past experiences building the business. Can you tell me a little bit about the library that you're building?
Yeah. So I have been obsessed with Benjamin Franklin ever since my freshman year when my history professor made us read his autobiography. And
The
Franklin
Walter Isaac
created,
Isaacson one?
no, so that's the biography, but Franklin wrote his own
Uh-huh.
autobiography.
Okay.
And what's beautiful about what Franklin built is he built timeless institutions. So he built the first university, he built the first fire station,
Which one did he build?
he built the University of Pennsylvania.
Oh wow.
He created the academy that later became the University of Pennsylvania. But something he created in 1931 was called the Library Company of Philadelphia. And the Library Company of Philadelphia was the first subscription library in all of the United States. So he invented the idea of lending books from libraries, which is just crazy.
Interesting.
And what was really interesting is the way that library started was he took his members of his junto, which means group in Latin, and they were obviously in Philadelphia. They didn't have access to bookshops like you would in London and Boston. And they paid the rich aristocrats for access to their books for a year, almost like a catalog. And then you would pay dues as a member of the library, and that would allow you to take things out after hours. But when you would take out a book, you'd have to return it like the next morning. So people would stay up all night reading under candlelight type thing. So I love that idea. In the present day, where content is a commodity, libraries in that sense don't really have the same purpose, right? You don't need to go to a physical location with physical books to get access.
Just go on my website.
Exactly. But what's actually missing is, what do I read? And in what order do I read things? So
that's where the curation comes in.
Exactly.
All these concepts are interwoven.
And so you have to be exposed in the right order. Back to work and clean. Oh, I showered. And now I'm trying to cook my pasta. Oh, wait, the water's not hot. So I can't cook it. Right? The intention was there, but you can't cook pasta unless the water's boiling. So you have to boil the water first. I think that same idea exists in content. The only bad thing is it's invisible. When you pick up a book with a really sexy title or the one that your favorite YouTuber told you to read, you've actually got no idea if that's the book you should be reading right now. And then assuming that there's only one good chapter or two good chapters, the question is, okay, if there's just two good chapters here, how do I actually implement this? I just read the words, but how could I implement this? So I was thinking about a library of not only ideas where I get to know you, I figure out where you're at, and then I don't really assign you books. I assign you chapters in a specific order. So don't read this before this. If you do, it's just going to confuse you and you're going to try and cook pasta with cold water. So good luck. It will be there, but you're going to be waiting. But what if you then also had people to discuss those ideas with? So what if the modern day version of Franklin's library was like, hey, based on your expertise and where you're at and your knowledge, these are the stacked chapters you need to read in this order. And then at each level, this is the person you need to speak to who's already mastered the implementation of this. And that's where a lot of the work I've been doing for expert networks has really got my imagination going, because that's what expert networks are. They are basically amalgamated millions of experts with defined domain expertise, and people pay them thousands an hour to give them the deep dive on X. So that's what I'm thinking about with my library is, let's say you wanted to work clean. I wouldn't just assign you the book, right? I would give you deep work. I would give you some of the Dan Charnas stuff. I'd give you the first round review. I'd give you a piece on structured procrastination. And then I'd say, hey, this one first, like a HelloFresh recipe, like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And that's what makes the meal. But obviously, we don't consume content that way, right? We have this algorithm that just serves us content. And then we read these books. But I can attest to this. You need to be ready to consume that information. And you can read books in the wrong order. And so sometimes
100%.
when you do that, things don't stack. You get pasta in cold water. and a hungry person. All you need to do is redo that in the right order and then consistently. And so that's been another thing about being in business this long. You get opportunities to revisit ideas and see how they stack. And then I have enough of a backlog and past experience now to be like, oh my God, that was the right first book for me to read. But the second one was actually this one. And I can give you some more examples later of how that's happened for me. There's one particular example on the financial side that's really pertinent, but that's a library I dream of. Basically, I read the first book I ever read that got the business off the ground was $1 Million Consulting. $1 Million Consulting was brilliant because it taught me value-based pricing. And then it showed me a framework for proposals that just get accepted, that don't have legalese, that are 2 pages, that are really easy to create. And so my first contracts, I just copied that framework and created value-based pricing. And that allowed me to launch my business. But if I'm honest, having generated hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, there was never really a book I read on what do you do with that revenue. When you come into entrepreneurship from a W-2 job, you're just in income replacement mode. And because I was so young anyway, I was 18 months out of school, it's not like I develop a system for my money anyway. You're just excited to not be a college kid again, right? Living in a nice apartment and you have money to do things. It's all guns go. But in Q4 of 2023, I read Profit First. The book in a sentence is, people think that profit is sales minus expenses. What Profit First says is actually that sales minus profit equals your expenses. And so what it's saying is, you have to run this business at a profit, otherwise why run a business, which I love. Again, the VCs wouldn't maybe agree with that. Second, your expenses have to be in line with whatever income you need
lifestyle
to live the life you want. Yeah, exactly. And then it creates a set of automations. So you set up 5 different bank accounts. That's effectively like a waterfall. So every dollar that you earn has a purpose and a place. And they basically give you a calculator based on your expenses. Okay, this is the net income you need to generate. And this is the percentage of every dollar that goes to tax, that goes to operating expenses, that goes to owner's compensation, that goes to profit. That's the book I needed. I would have eaten that book alive in 2019. I unfortunately only got to it in 2023, but that book changed my life. And then what that book did is then it made I Will Teach You to Be Rich practical. And that's by Ramit Sethi. I'd read that book years ago, but that was always about IRAs and 401ks. And I didn't have my green card. I wasn't married. I couldn't do those things. But Profit First was the middle ground. If $1 Million Consulting was, hey, here's how you get paid value-based fees. So you get paid on your output, not your input. Profit First is that, hey, this is how you make sure there's no lifestyle creep and that you support all aspects of your business and you automate that. And then I Will Teach You to Be Rich is like, hey, here's how you compound this shit so you can retire whenever you want and live your rich life. That's the order, 1, 2, 3. I read them 1, 3, 2. So I would say on that side of the business, I had some cold pasta, some cold uncooked pasta. That was a huge hack for me. And that's really transformed how I think about the future because it's helped me put into context, what am I actually aiming for from a revenue standpoint? How profitable do I want to be? And then with those profits, what should I do based on the life I want? A lot of the classic entrepreneurship training just goes, oh yeah, quit your job, be free, work and travel wherever you want. And then it's okay. And
you have to have a purpose.
I found the working clean of basically cash flow and finances. And that feels amazing. Like it feels so good. Imagine if that's just a section of the library that everyone struggles with and everybody's going to have to face. And then you've got access to those ideas in that order. And then you've got 3 people to call who have executed it at different levels, like in hospitality, in real estate, in the knowledge economy.
What other kinds of content are you curating in this library?
So the library has a couple of different areas. I was always inspired by HBR's 10 must reads. So every section of the library has a must reads, which I love. So like the top 10 on this.
Every section, but what's the section?
So there's a couple sections. So one of them is essays. So essays is exactly like it sounds. And inside of essays, there's a bunch of
essays that you write.
Yeah, essays that I write. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just pull up the visual here because I think
Yeah, that'd be really valuable.
People like share screen. And again, I want to show that like everything I'm talking about, even though it's not built or it's being built, I have like real, not just wireframes, but like I have a URL that like maps this out. And I think there's something really beautiful about that. So yeah, let me pull this up. All right. So this is the breakdown of the library. So we mentioned like editors' picks, the must reads. There are essays, there are transcripts, there are frameworks, and there are guides. So this is like the top level effectively. And this is me thinking deeply about, hey, what's the type of stuff that I've done? So like an example of an essay is this essay that a Notre Dame professor wrote after he won the greatest prize in the field of history, called Don't Believe the Hype. Transcript, pretty basic example of my conversation with Lindsey Vohn's sister, Karen Kildau. So the transcript of that conversation that we had on the podcast. A framework is something like a review, which we've talked a lot about. So I reviewed the entire year of Monocle's 2022 magazine. So all 10 magazines and 2 specials.
That's
Guides.
the one that I referenced a little bit earlier, right?
Exactly, yeah. And then I haven't produced this yet, but I'm really into Holloway guides. They're like deep dive guides on like things like equity and venture capital. So I want to write my own guide on equity. And so I can prove, 1, to myself, but 2, to everyone else that like, hey, I think I actually know what I'm talking about here. And then I'll show you this real quick, but effectively each of those areas, so we'll take essays to begin, each of those areas has a bunch of different subcategories and a bunch of different essays. And the idea is that like with every piece of content that I create, there's going to be a bunch of different essays. Obviously, when you think of essay, you think of probably something written, right? That's the vast majority of internet content. But for a long time, I've been thinking, what about just a photo essay? Imagine this podcast was just 10 photos. That's interesting. Profiles are a type of essay that you read in Rolling Stone or the New Yorker. Right. Quote essays, just essays that are quotes. I've seen like only one guy really do this, but like he makes a whole argument just with different quotes in different places. Again, that gets back to curation.
That's interesting.
That's the example of what the essays looks like. I want to show you frameworks next. I think frameworks is super cool as well. But basically, yeah, like I think reviews are a framework. I think playlists are a framework. Yeah. And then there's curriculum, which is basically modules stacked together. So that's the library I'm building. And I'm currently refactoring about 200 pieces of content. But each of those pieces of content will eventually sit somewhere. And then maybe this will be fun for everyone at home to see, talking about working clean. But if you come into my library, it's designed exactly like you just saw on the page. And you can see that I got a lot of things to work through. I've got about 138 ideas. Yeah, like just on speed, on memberships, on Chicago, on best country in the world, on pricing and newsletters. Like I just got it.
Is England best country in the world?
No, I talk about the elements of what a best country in the world would be, right? So this will probably not happen this year. I think I said it in my Q4 letter. Like I was saying that the library would be something that would be around by now, but I think it's going to take me some time. But I love that I have the structure set out. And hopefully when we're doing our 10-year review together, that will be something that's live, that people will be paying for. And so back to the beginning, this is what I think my version of the Franklin Library Company of Philadelphia would be. The everyday library would be, I pay a yearly fee for access to these ideas that get stacked correctly so you don't get cold pasta. And then also I can speak to people who have actually implemented these things. That would be the sickest library in the world, because content's a commodity, right? It's all about community and conversation and execution. And so I'm just baking that into our version of a library effectively.
I love this idea. I think that's probably my favorite idea from all the ones that we've talked about.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. I've actually been thinking about my personal website in a very similar way. Yeah. I know we've talked about personal websites a little bit before. I'm of the philosophy that, like I was saying before, if you're going to monetize yourself as a person, all of your skills, all of that should probably live on your website. Yeah. And as a curious intellectual, this library is just an extension of that. And so for
Exactly.
me, like I make music, and so that's my library, but I also like to take pictures with my camera. That's a library. I write on LinkedIn. That's the library. And that's a really cool way of thinking about it. A lot of people keep separate libraries. They might have a photo library and Instagram and then a YouTube channel separate from here. But your idea is just let's have everything on my website
Yes,
and everything, all of my ideas live in one home,
exactly.
which is cool.
That's algorithm 3 that I control, direct
Hmm.
relationship. And yeah, I want to shout out a guy called Anton, cool Ukrainian guy, but he introduced me to the concept of digital gardens. It's basically just like it sounds. No, I keep saying this, but instead of thinking about building a blog or a website, think about a digital garden. So you're planting different types of trees and plants, water,
And
soil,
ideas.
right?
Hmm.
There are like these rudimentary lines between things, right? And certain ideas need space to grow. So a big concept I think of digital gardens is bi-directional links. So when you click something, you can see where else it's attached to. It's like playing the Wikipedia game where you start with an artist and then you have to get to McDonald's. And so you have
Hmm.
to use knowledge and knowledge trees to basically think about how you could get to a space in the fewest clicks. So a digital garden saying, hey, instead of having all these ideas be separated, let's have it be a garden so they can feed each other and the roots can grow. You can look online for good examples of digital gardens. I think people get a bit too fancy with it and they start building these really like aesthetic, minimalist-esque websites with like forgetting the true purpose of the digital garden, which is to execute, I think at least, and to remember. So yeah,
Communicate your ideas.
so I guess you
First
can
and
say that.
foremost.
Yeah, I guess you could say that the library is basically my version of a digital garden, but way better, way better. And so that's a big ask and task. But yeah, I would love to be recognized by some of those digital garden bloggers eventually for building something pretty cool that doesn't have bi-directional links. I just want to do people and ideas and then sit down with you. Like when you buy a membership at the library, I want to have a phone call. I want to do bibliotherapy with you. I want to ask you about your relationship to books and why you bought a membership and what you're looking to get out of it. I think that idea is huge. And I think you said this to me when we spoke. That's a way where I could start to serve a whole new level of people at a very different price point with the same level of quality that I give some of these larger partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm really curious about how you think about scale, because usually the argument for the two thoughts of, maybe not two thoughts of business, but usually a lot of people who like software, they're
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't like service, right? People who swear by service, oh, maybe I don't like software, I don't get software.
Yeah.
It usually comes down to scale, right? It's this business requires my time at every moment of the day when I'm servicing my clients. How am I going to get more than a certain number of clients? How am I going to get to X number of dollars in my bank account? And so, how do you think about scaling your business? Because you've said before that money isn't the objective, right? It
Mhm.
sounds to me like building connections, leaving an impact, sharing and learning ideas is really the goal of this whole initiative. But you are running a business, right? And so, in some way, you do have to think of scale, getting to a certain level so that you can live that lifestyle that you mentioned in your formula.
Yep.
And so, yeah, how do you think about scaling this type of business? Do you have any levers that you usually pull on? Do you have any plans for scaling in the future? Because I know you've alluded to the point that you're like in semi, or you were in semi stealth mode.
Yep.
And so, yeah, how do you think about these things?
I think scale is a word that's overused because the VC playbook dominates so much of the zeitgeist. People are taking concepts that don't need to apply to them. And a lot of business, every business at the beginning is doing unscalable things. So to me and my time will always be unscalable. That will never change. But the
Mhm.
infrastructure that we create around events, around the library, around travel, those are the things that can have infinite scale. That technology has
Mhm.
infinite scale. And I don't need to serve everybody, right? We'll talk about this later, but one of the things that Profit First gave me, in addition to some reading through Ramit about solo 401ks and just the business tax code here in America, you can almost figure out like, hey, if I want to be a debt-free millionaire in 4 years, this is the net income I need to generate.
Yeah.
And then based on that net
I
income,
call it the number. Do you have your number?
yeah, I have my number.
It's such
As
a
I think,
powerful concept, dude. Most people don't think about it that way. They're just like, I want to be a millionaire.
yeah,
You don't have to. If like you
Don't.
really put some thought into it, just come up with your number. Like you can come up with an exact number
Yeah.
and build out a model to figure out when.
Yeah. And so you figure out that number. I would like to have a balanced holding company. I think an equally balanced holding company would be awesome. So 20% of revenue comes from each of the 5 subsidiaries. I don't have that today. That's natural. These things started at different times. Maybe I never will have that. Maybe it will always be 60, 30, 20, 10, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how I think about scale, is just I want to scale impact before I scale fees. And then, to be honest with you, create infrastructure that can almost allow people to do that ad infinitum. So if I create this library and I build this plumbing, in theory, people could use that forever. They would always want, right, access to new ideas. Yeah. They would always want assessment.
You're long gone. You're well past.
And
then people are still buying your ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Same with technology, right? Yes, I can only plan so many offsites per year, but if those individuals come onto our travel platform, then we can capture their year-round spend, and they will have year-round spend ad infinitum. Same thing with equity. Okay, yeah, capital raising isn't scalable, but once you have a profit interest in an LLC at the holdco level, suddenly now you are receiving all of the revenues and profits from all of these different subsidiaries ad infinitum. So that's how I think about scale, is just do the unscalable thing, but get to a point where there's infinite growth in theory. And each of my products has an element of that. And I really like that. And that's
you're building in the software, but you're not just providing a service, you're providing a digital product in a way that people can always go back to.
Exactly.
You know?
And so there's still always that human taste curation element. And then there's the underbelly of the spend. And so by doing that, you can do different things. You can charge in different ways, right? If I can capture one of my clients' year-round travel spend for 3 years in a row, that changes how I can price an engagement, how I can
100%.
deliver an offsite. And so that is really creative. And explaining to the partner, hey, if we do this, then whatever you're getting on me, you could return just on your travel spend and the partnership agreement I have with our technology provider. So that's how I like to think about scale. And then, yeah, I think reading profit first and saying, hey, I want to be a debt-free millionaire in 4 years. And this is the revenue I have to hit. And these are the savings. This is what IRA, HSA, this is what Solar 401k looks like. This is what my wife can do, because there's a cool loophole in the Solar 401k with having your partner as part of the business. And these things only exist to people with no employees. So I almost feel like it's this shining rock.
As soon as you get an employee, you lose it.
You lose access to the Solar 401k. Yeah, there are other things you can do in that situation, but the Solar 401k, and we can go deeper on it later, it is so valuable. But the number one rule is that you can have 0 employees other than a spouse. So that's really cool as well. And also I think it's cool to talk about, because another thing that Venkat talks about is like, how can you increase your likelihood of success in the gig economy? One of the things is having a partner who has a consistent income and who's going to support you. And so I think there's a beauty to the fact
100%.
that the instability of a business will eventually be the stability that I can add on to my wife's W-2 in a massive way, in a way that you would never be able to achieve as a full-time employee. Even if you had a 6% match, right? You can contribute up to $69,000 with the Solar 401k between employer and employee contributions. Can you imagine how big your salary would have to be to get 6% to get to $69,000? You have to be big ass salary, right?
That's a big difference. What's this rule called?
It's just a Solar 401k. So it's just a retirement plan. It's just like a 401k, but it's specifically for business owners that have 0 employees. And so it allows you to do an employee and employer contribution, but it's based on the net income of your business, not on the salary that you were given, if that makes sense. Not just on the salary you were given. So it allows me to be every day the employer and Cornelius the employee.
Get the best of both worlds.
If you put $70,000 a year for both you and your wife, and she's already got a 401k through work, you figure out Roth IRA, which is like 7,000, HSA, I think it's similar.
It's a big contribution.
It's huge
every year.
But if you get that right for 4 years, at 6% growth and you put 3 months of an emergency fund in a high yield savings account at 5%, you have 7 figures invested in 4 years just from profits. Mm-hmm. So what about that compared to a venture outcome? How about that?
Yeah.
And the number for me isn't that, it's not crazy. It's really reasonable. Yeah. So as the way I think about scales, I want to be consistently hitting that number so we can be debt-free millionaires. And then I can choose whether I want to go above that. See if I like
some
it.
Freedom.
Some freedom, yeah. Some real freedom, all based on profit, which I think is absolutely the key idea of profit first is, look, sales minus profit equals expenses.
I think that's my favorite new formula.
It's fucking great, dude.
It's so good.
I wish I read it. If my libraries existed, they wouldn't have let me out the room to incorporate the business until I had read that chapter. I'm serious. Like, you can't.
Because then it changes the whole framework for the business. You're not working for your business. You're working for your lifestyle.
Yep.
You're not working for this esoteric concept. You're working literally to live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. And then you have some real structures in place of, wow, okay, yeah, you don't get healthcare when you start a business. People think you can't have retirement plans. Actually, you can. And they can actually be way better. But the only ways those things get funded is if you're profitable. That sort of 401k piece, I feel like I've stacked. And Ramit's been a great inspiration. But no one's written a book yet on this. And then I will shout out this company that's really cool for listeners called carrymoney.com. They were just on the My First Million podcast. Founded by the founder of Teachable and Core. I caught up with him on Friday. But they've now built a digital infrastructure for solar 401ks. So I just set up my entire plan in 5 minutes on Friday. They did absolutely everything inside of their digital ecosystem. I opened a brokerage account, opened a solar 401k plan. It's now guided by an advisor. And the cool thing right now is there's actually a tax credit going on for self-directed retirement plans. So you'll get up to $500 a year in tax credits. So I paid for the premium plan, $499 up front, but I'll get for 3 years, I'll get it for free around tax season. So just talk about that as a technology, right? Like, that scale. Like, the one person business isn't, but profit invested the right way. 4 years of consistency. And that's what I hope to be talking to you about when we do the 10-year review is, hey, I hit that number. And if I'd just known about these ideas earlier, I think I would have cottoned on faster. So that's been a huge shift for me. And I think is befitting of turning 5.
Interesting. And you went in so many different directions. I want to go back to your idea of different, I forget how you framed it, maybe different opportunities give you different ideas on how to charge. Mm-hmm. You have so many businesses. Do you have any interesting ideas around pricing?
The best thing I ever read on pricing was 2 things. So value-based pricing has been big for me. I always value-based price. I think a billing method as subscription with automatic reconciliation is massive. I love the idea of expansion revenue because it's saying, hey, I want to expand the value that I'm bringing clients. And that gets you to the mecca of net negative churn, especially when you have a small number of clients like I do, that you don't want to serve everybody. And then I'm a big behavioral economics fan. So studied a lot of and I know he's under investigation right now, but a lot of Dan Ariely, Richard Thaler.
Under investigation.
Nudge. Yeah, I studied a lot of those pricing experiments. There's a great blog post on pricing experiments. There's a very famous study at The Economist of what product do people buy when they're showed 3 options versus 2. What happens when you use a price that ends in 0 versus 9? What does that mean for purchasing on a luxury versus a non-luxury good? So I've read all of that stuff, and that's all baked into my head when I go ahead. And I always give people options. I give them always a tier. And then, I always like to say, hey, like, we can add this. So if we start advisor, we can add travel or we can add content. And then actually, if you want to be a partner, there's a world here where I make you more than you spent on us every year. So there's that profit, that beautiful word again. That's a really cool conversation to have with someone. So those are some of the things that I absolutely love. I can include in the show notes that psychology piece. But I think the fundamentals are give people options, give them tiers, have your billing method be automatic, and then also make sure that you are values-based pricing, because that's how you get alignment with the partner on, hey, this is actually the value of this. And that's somewhat based on, hey, this is the going rate. But when you start doing things no one's done before, there's no prevailing market rate.
How do you measure value? Is it just how much money you're saving them, or how much more money you're making them, or how much risk you're avoiding? Like
Alan Weiss likes to say that value is in the eye of the beholder. So it's a great philosophical answer. So the answer is there's a million types of value, right? There's a functional value, there's a social value, there's an intellectual, psychological value. There's all these different types of values that you can get. The question is, which one is your client really buying and wants more than any of the others? And then if you can identify that, it's okay, great. What are the prevailing rates? And also, what's going to make you both feel good? Like when you come at it from that as a partner, that's way more valuable. It's not like, how much can I milk out of this individual? It's what's going to
because not everyone has the same willingness to pay.
Exactly.
So
yeah, willingness, ability. I like to think about having flexibility, but also knowing what I'm worth, and knowing that the higher the investment, the more emotionally invested that person's going to be. And I need a high degree of emotional investment to do the shit that I want to do, and work the things I want to work. And so I think I just naturally gravitate to having a premium price. Although I think I'm premium, but I know there's people getting paid way more to do way less. And so that's a constant struggle. But I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm fundamentally happy to leave a little bit on the table, which I know isn't a popular phrase sometimes, and like absolutely over deliver.
Eventually your pricing will catch up.
Yeah, just the impact will speak for itself, right? Like I'm looking to grow the pie here between me and the partner. That's what I'm looking to do. If I come into it with that positive mindset, things take care of itself.
100%, dude. I've heard so many musicians who come into the game, let's say maybe a producer or like an executive, they come into the game as an intern working for free, right? And then eventually they get paid, I don't know, fuck all, it's $5 an hour. And then eventually they get to 10. But the whole time they're doing amazing work. They're already the best, or getting to be the best in what they do.
Yeah.
And then eventually you hear them getting the contracts that are like 10 million for a record or whatever the hell. But it's like, you had to build the brand first. You had to prove your value over an extended period of time. And you're in a great position because you've already done this for so long. You don't have to settle for doing it for free or doing it for small amounts of money. But you know that there's this ceiling that you're chasing that's like much higher.
And that's the beauty I love of the pricing model is you can choose to be a client, you can choose to be a partner. There's a million different ways we can structure it.
So there's two different pricings, clients and providers.
Well, partner, like I said earlier, the difference between partner and client is that partner can also make money from what we're creating, right? So the typical kind of client, a service provider relationship is, hey, the service provider is getting paid by the client, and the client is telling the service provider what to do, and they're returning some type of product or expertise. When you're in a partnership, you're actually saying, okay, great, I'm bringing you in to do these things, but could we actually make money together to actually grow the pie effectively? So that might be a retreat that I curate, or an event series where I have a revenue share with the individual who's actually owning that brand, right? It could be having royalties in a book that I'm going to write for somebody, right? There's some type of upside or equity in a business. So I could be the chief membership officer, or they could use my enrichment product, and I've got a 5% profit interest in the holding company. So that's that partnership element of, I'm not just a cost to you. I can be an asset too, but you can choose, right? If you just want the client thing, that's totally fine. And I'm really happy with that. But the highest form, I think, of collaboration is partnership. But those are rare. And so you've really just got to work those. And when you find them, take care of them.
It's so interesting. In the field that I work in, a lot of my clients, we're starting to call them partners because it is becoming more of a symbiotic relationship as you move towards big enterprise, 6-figure, 7-figure checks.
Right.
But our clients are the ones that first bring up the word partner to us.
Yeah.
So they want us to frame it as a partnership before we even think about it that way, which I find it really interesting. And
People use
I
the
got taken
words.
back in the beginning. I was like, wait, are you trying to get out of pricing? Is this like a discount play? Like, why are you
Yeah.
using this word? But
It's
this conversation shed a different light on it. It's more, no, I want you to think of this as we're working together.
yeah. If you're thinking about growing their P&L and you're actually taking some responsibility and saying, hey, this is actually how I can do that for you. Not, oh, if you buy this, you might be able to do it. There's a difference there, right? And so, yeah, I love that. I like that mentality. I like that it's something that people can graduate into. I think it takes years of trust to build that over time. But yeah, you're right. I've done this so many times now. I've made money so many different ways, like subscriptions, affiliate, retainer, lump sum, commission, event fees. I've tried them all on for size. And so back to that idea of chefs and ingredients and how they work together, I feel like I understand that now. I know what my baseline price needs to be. But then over and above that, we can get creative. Because all types of revenue are not the same. All business models are not the same. Obviously not valued the same. We've known that for a while now in the private and public markets.
Right.
So I just want to set myself up for best success. And then, yeah, just choose a pricing model that makes sense for what's being delivered and create some skin in the game, right? Some chance of upside, like some incentive. That's really what I think is pretty cool, and lucky to have met a few people already who get that. But most of the world does not get that. And so they find that strange, and that violates their understanding of what I could be. And what I'm trying to say is just because you haven't done this before doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't. But business doesn't really work that way. It's a lot more risk averse than you think. But then we sit around all day reading the stories of the people like Dr. Dre who are brave enough to groove confused and mix two things. So it's so ironic, right? Like business people are so risk averse, but then spend all their free time reading about the people that were really risk on and who are brave enough to
dreaming about the time that they can do it.
Yeah, it's almost inverted. So yeah, that's how I think about pricing, but it's all a feelings thing. That's another thing I'll say is, okay, yeah, don't just take away these frameworks. Like use feeling at the end. Like that will always be your best guide.
So I do want to talk a little bit about how you got here, because now we have a really good idea of what you do, why you do it,
Yep.
how you've gotten here. But I want to hear a little bit more about the beginning. So I do have a few more questions. I guess the first one would be, can you give us a little bit of reflection on the community that you've built? You alluded to working with big companies, big authors, big business people. Tell us how you got there. Like maybe run us through like how it started and how you got to this level that you're now at.
My first job in college was working for this startup, and that was my first job out of school. All the jobs I ever had, they were always in some type of sales or outreach role. And so I just got introduced to cold emailing really early. And so I've effectively built all my relationships from three things: cold emails. I read about someone, I cold email them, I say I want to meet. Conferences, large events where people gather, and then after a while, introductions from people that I met in the first two. And so I've probably spent the last, I'd say 10 years, 8 to 10 years, probably sending multiple cold emails a week to new individuals, just purely out of curiosity. And so
it's like a weekly exercise.
Almost.
Putting up shots.
Yeah. And I didn't realize I was doing it. And then I was doing it, and then it's, wow, this is the only thing I've ever known how to do. And all the best things in my life have come out of doing those things and all the activities around them. So like I might cold email someone, and then years later they invite me to give a talk. And then from that talk, I meet a client, whatever it is. And so, yeah, that's the fundamental thing. And so during the pandemic, I realized when I couldn't leave my house that, wow, okay, all of those relationships, they could actually be something. They could be greater than the sum of their parts. And because Soho was a great inspiration for me, and I really missed the collegial social atmosphere of university, I was like, maybe I could build this kind of transient community. And I think for a while, I thought it was going to be a forever thing. I had a business partner who actually helped me build it, but then left in July of 2021. And actually, I'll just read this quote from Venkatesh Rao because, funnily enough, he actually built a community too. But he later said that it was more like an airport than a community. And I read this and my eyes jumped off the page. I just felt like someone was speaking to me. And so the interviewer asked him, "Can you unpack this?" And he said, "People pass through and maybe take some souvenirs with them. I like it that way. A place where people influenced and were influenced for a while. It feels good to see all the interesting things people have done after passing through this airport. I'd say several hundred people transited through this airport over about a decade as more than just readers. These days I've gone back to mostly being a one-person show and the airport is closed. But this more social chapter was a big part of the story." And so what I did from 2020 through 2023, or really 2019 through 2023, was I hosted retreats, I built a membership program, I run a cohort-based course, I ran a year-long fellowship. I was B2C, my entire business was B2C. And I just built relationships with hundreds of interesting professionals. And the way I got paid was they basically paid for access to the world I built. But eventually I actually got a bit burnt out on that, and I didn't love the outcomes, the scalability or the feeling, all the things I've talked about, right? And so, yeah, I talk about the community I built as an airport. There are a lot of people that pass through coming from a bunch of different places on a bunch of different flight plans, but everyone took something with them, right? And some people have gone on to do exactly what they came into the community to do. And for some of those individuals, I found ways to keep working with them. But for the most part, a lot of people didn't. They just took maybe some inspiration. And it's because I'm so focused on execution and I actually want to see my ideas come to life, I think I just fell out of love with it a bit. I wanted 90% of people that I worked with to be executing, not 10. And like Venkat, I've just come back to being a one-person shop. I no longer run a community, but I've got a community-driven holding company, which I obviously explained at the top of the show. So
is that related to the reason that you've pivoted into business curation?
Yeah, I think 100%, because entrepreneurship is about freedom and you get to choose what you do. So if you don't like that thing anymore, you've lost one of the core tenets.
No, I don't mean the fact that you didn't like it. The fact that a business might be more willing or able to execute on the recommendation that you're giving them, as opposed to an individual.
I couldn't figure out a way to get my value, to feel good about what I was delivering, and create the right scale. I couldn't figure it out in the B2C context. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but I didn't like the games I would have to play at the end of the day. It was a lot of people management, right? It was a lot of ego stroking, and consumers are fickle, man. Like, people won't pay 99 cents for a bloody app store app to change their life. Building B2C is hard. Like, consumer facing businesses are hard. So moving to B2C, where I could still have a personal relationship with an individual, but they would represent a business with infrastructure and process and capital, that's just a much better fit for me anyway, because then I can see the things that I'm talking about and building. They just have a larger stage. But like I said, I'm really proud of what we built. It's informed everything I've done today. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing that over the next 5 years. So it truly is like a chapter of the book. But I'm glad I found a way to keep community driven in the future of the business without that meaning that I am a chaperone of sorts for hundreds of high-powered professionals.
It's a funny way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's how it started to feel at the end. And this gets into working in the business versus on the business. What you become is you run a membership program. That's what you run. You run a community. You are the police. You are the parent. That's what you become. And I just didn't want that after a while. I did it for a while. Like, I tried it. I think that's what people should take away, is this concept of a compound company. Like, you're going to have to evolve. So I evolved. But I took the infrastructure, AKA the travel piece, the curriculum, the hundreds of reps I got with working with top professionals, and I found a way to reinvent that sound and reinvent that model without burning myself out. That's the greatest real superpower, is the ability to reinvent yourself. So it's very natural. But yeah, I just think it's funny that another sparrer also fell into this thing, AKA running a community for a bit. he looks back with it on fun memories. That retreat we did down in Miami, like I've done 22 of those retreats now. But the most recent one I planned,
That's wild.
I didn't even go to.
22.
The one I planned in Q4 for 12 of the biggest YouTubers in the world with 90 million subscribers, I didn't even go to it. But because I had all the reps of the 21 before, I could plan it from Chicago in my apartment. I know how to negotiate. I know how to create. I know how to structure. I don't even need to go anymore. I've got that good at it.
Alrighty, so we summarized the past 5 years a little bit. Talk about where Cornelius has been, but I want to understand where he came from. Tell me a little bit about your background story, your immigration story from the UK to the US. Maybe like your time at Notre Dame a little bit.
Yes.
Tell me about your come up.
So I celebrated 10 years in the United States, August of 23. So I moved to the US when I was 18. I moved from North London to South Bend, Indiana. Went to our alma mater, Notre Dame. Then, yeah, celebrated 10 years, which is crazy. August 23, 10 years from being a freshman. It's crazy to think about where I live now, looking on the 42nd floor, looking at all of Chicago, recording this pod with you versus, you know, a little kid in a little modular furniture dorm with Walmart sheets and 2 suitcases. But yeah, man, it was crazy last year. Like I got married, celebrated 10 years in the States, and then I got my green card after 78 days, no interviews. So this entire time I've been in the States, I've been what they call a non-resident alien. So I've needed to be either in an academic institution or on work authorization to be able to do and live and work. So that meant that I was a student, not only for 4 years at Notre Dame with a 1 year break from 2017 to 18, but then I had to go and do a master's.
I didn't know you got a master's.
Yeah, I had to go do a master's at a school in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania that specializes in what they call day one CPT programs. So it was an executive program where I'd go there once every 6 weeks. I'd fly to Harrisburg for a half a day of classes, and I had to do class twice a week for 2 years. So me and a lot of my immigrant friends, we all have to do this. And I had to do it because H1B wasn't available to me, right? Working in kind of the smaller startup entrepreneurial space. So to finally get the green card after literally being on a student visa for 10 years was one of the most momentous moments of my life. And obviously we've talked a lot about my growth over the last 5 years, but it all really came to a head last year. And that's why it feels so right to be doing this pod. And I know I've talked about how I've upgraded my mindset, my systems, my billing, my products, but I did all of that with an immigrant mentality. And so I'm never not going to have that mentality now. But now I actually have a foundation with permanent resident status, which allows me to play some of the games we talked about earlier with retirement accounts and IRAs and owning S Corps. But I just get to be here now without needing to have a job or needing to be in school. And the amount of money that I've spent post-tax on school is just absolutely crazy. And that's been a big pressure on myself and my business and my financial life. So I'm very excited to be done with school, to be done with tuition, to be done with fees, to be done with homework. And I can just go all fucking in on myself. And I'm not looking for any extra credit, but I've been very silent about my immigration journey. And entrepreneurship's hard. Being a solopreneur is hard. Being bootstrap solopreneur is hard. Being an immigrant bootstrap solopreneur is like playing FIFA on Legendary. Playing the game of life on Legendary. And I think that's been a good practice for me. I don't expect things to get easier. I think they'll get simpler. And yeah, I'm just really proud that I've made it this far and now I'm safe.
You think being an immigrant contributed to your success?
Absolutely.
Like the mentality or whatever traits come with that?
Yeah, it's just a part of me. I'll always be an immigrant. But of course it does, because you have to work harder, right? To get what other people just get because they have a citizenship status. And when we have kids, that will be something I pass on to them. But it's crazy, man. I've gone from being the non-resident alien to now UK passport. I've got permanent resident status. I've got a green card. And then my dad finally got the Irish passports done. So I'll be an Irish citizen in June. So that means if we have a next of kin, I have triple passport. That child will be able to work and live freely in the European Union, the United Kingdom, and North America. That is absolutely crazy. That is the biggest gift you can give anyone. So yeah, I'm very excited And honestly, since the green card, I've realized that I was on defense a bit this whole time. Not just building in private and being quiet about my story because my status was not permanent, but also because I didn't really know how to talk about it. And so now that it's done.
That's surprising to me.
Why is that?
You've always seemed good at talking about it.
I always talk about it privately, but publicly, I've never, ever talked about my immigration journey. So that's one of my big, and I know we'll talk about this, but that's one of my big goals or focuses for the next 5 years, is to bring my immigration journey into this world I've built. Because that is the existential plight, right? Like moving to a new place for hopes of a better life. That's something that all of us do every day. We're all immigrants. So yeah, man, that's been huge. It's been hard. America's a really hard place to make it. Much harder if you're an immigrant to actually stay and be here. And so, yeah, I'm very proud and thankful. And it was beautiful that it was my wife that gave it to me. It had nothing to do with my business pursuits or my academic credentials or things like that. It was just my wife. She was able to give it to me. So there's a deeper story around love. Yeah, she's an American. So it came through marriage. But I think for the purposes of this podcast, like, I can now go on offense. So based on everything I've said, if I'm being really honest, I think I've been on defense the last 5 years. Truly. There's no way I could just realize it hit me. There's no way I could have been on offense. Psychologically, there was no safety there. Really. Just got used to it.
So what does offense look like? How does it differ?
I think the debt-free millionaire stuff is a big part of it. Just aggressive on building financial freedom and being in a place to be like, okay, great. Like, we're set. I think that's one piece. I think second is being louder about the things I had to overcome to do what I do.
Are you going to talk more about the business?
Maybe. If people want to hear it. But yeah, like,
I personally think it would add a lot of value, bro. Like I take so many lessons from our conversations that I apply in my life.
Look, put it this way. There's no limit now on me. There's no limit. There's literally no limit. And from just a human standpoint, Irish passport comes in the summer. Now I can live and work in 3 of the biggest places in the world. Yeah, so it's just, there's just no limit. There's no restrictions. And I've only ever had restrictions. Like rules about jobs you can work, places you can work, money you can earn. Immigrants get underpaid all the time because the employers know they have them by the balls. So yeah, man, that's defense. Having someone else dictate.
Surviving.
A play, yeah. Offense is like, nah, I'm going to set the playbook here. So.
But even when you're surviving, you're thriving. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I've done good, but I think we're speaking less here about like speed and intensity. This is more about like enjoyment.
Mentality.
And mentality, yeah. And just like breathing a little.
Like just marveling and I know what you're saying, dude. The immigrant mentality is such a blessing, but such a curse sometimes.
Yeah, dude. It's
interesting. It's hard to shake. Would you say you don't have it anymore?
Nah. What I'm saying is I always have it, but now that mentality, there's no fear that's driving the mentality. It's like the mentality is just, okay, this is who I am. So if you then add that to like some permanence, aka a green card, aka triple passport, suddenly I've gone from 0 to hero. Now I'm thinking, with all these nationalities and citizenships, what can I do? Not, I've got to be careful about what I do because there are these rules. You see that? It like what was a compression.
That's how you frame it.
Yeah, has now become a foundation. It's like, I've got triple passport. So what's that going to allow me to do? Like, surely that's got to be a competitive advantage, right? So what am I going to do with that?
100%.
What am I going to do with that?
Why'd you end up coming to America anyway? London seems like on paper like such a great place for business.
It was, dude, when I grew up in London, I think we talked about this on the last pod, London at its best. I don't know, man. I think I watched a lot of American movies as a kid. I love Coach Carter. I love Remember the Titans. My dad had done a year of his MBA at Vanderbilt from Manchester Business School. But I really just didn't see a future for myself in the UK. I wanted to play soccer. I saw America as a path to do that. And then I fell into the world of SATs and elite schools. And then I was lucky enough to get into Notre Dame and Berkeley, and Notre Dame flew me out for 4 days, and I liked it.
They buttered you up.
Yeah, so all I can say is that there was just something deep inside of me that was saying, hey, go and explore a new world. Like, this could fit you. I just thought it was so sick. I thought the whole thing was so sick, so cool. And it's mad now, married to an American, 10 years later. It's crazy. It's fucking nuts. What's 10 years from now?
Did you see yourself ending up here? Did you see did you see America in your long-term future when you first came here?
No, I hated it when I first came. Yeah, I hated it when I first came. No one understood me. My credentials meant nothing. Couldn't drink. Didn't even have a proper phone number. Like, I was literally stripped of every shred of identity. And I just became a voice, which I always hated. But yeah, man. So it's a 5-year pod, but 10 years in the States. And I read this great quote.
That's an incredible journey.
Yeah, I read this great quote from 2 great quotes I want to share. One is from the founder of Art Investors. He said, there is no object or no hurdle that won't yield to you if you're excited about something for a decade. So that's one thing. I think I've been excited about America for a decade. So that's interesting. Second one is Bezos. He says, depending on what timeline you need your idea to work, completely dictates the competition you'll face. If you need something to work in 3 years, you're going to face a lot more competition if you can actually wait until year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. So I feel the same way about what I'm building. Is like, the longer I'm in the game, and I'm still in the game, the less competition there is to my left and right. And the immigration piece is a massive part of that, because people drop like flies, man, not even off their own volition. But they don't want to do the master's thing. They don't want to pay the money. They don't find the partner. It was unique for me to do this. There's almost no one that's stuck around for 10 years, built a life, built a business, and is now a permanent resident. Almost no one. So that's always been my biggest innovation. And then everything's downstream of there. And to be honest, that is probably my biggest credential in a lot of the work I do, even though it's unspoken, right? No one's hiring
being an immigrant.
Yeah, no one's hiring me because I moved halfway across the world at 18 and figured out a life for myself. But if we actually put everything up on the table, there's a lot of skills inside of that sentence that make all this other stuff that we've talked about today make sense. So that's one of my goals and focuses, is just to bring that into the story. Because yeah, it just, hopefully it creates more admiration. And it just gives me a chance to talk about the painful side of things, but the joy of it, and then hopefully create a change in the future of it, which is really where I'm coming at the storytelling piece from. Is I don't want it to be like this for anyone else in the future. It shouldn't be this way.
That's great. I have one more question about your past, and it has to do with, maybe if you could summarize just the last 5 years. I know there's been a lot of key moments in each of those years. So yeah, could you just summarize for us, like, each of the 5 years from 2018 all the way to 2023 last year? What happened? Like, what were some of the big shifts in the business that led you here?
Yeah, so the biggest reflection of the last 5 years is that I am still in the game. I have some scars, but I am still in the game. I'm in the ring. And the beauty of still being in the game after 5 years is that anything can happen. If you are not in the game, you cannot win the game. If you're not in the ring on your 2 feet, you can't win the fight. So that's the first thing. And I hope to continue in that way. In terms of a breakdown, man, I mean, there's a couple of things. Like I said, this was incepted in 2018. There were a few key moments that I reflect on. May of 2018, I flew out to Montana with my now brother-in-law to shoot a short documentary film on the chef called Eduardo Garcia. So that was the first everyday entrepreneur, everyday content series. Later that year, I started ghostwriting for Keith, which I've talked about. Keith introduced me to Nina Barton, who was the CMO of Kraft Heinz at the time. And in 2018, I actually speech wrote Nina's keynote at Grocery Talk, which is this massive CPG conference in Vegas. That leads me into 2019, where Nina was so impressed by that work. She was like, hey, I actually want to hire you to come and be my creative advisor and storyteller for this new VC fund acquisition that we made. And so that was my first client at AE, which is what it was called back then. So 2019 was definitely meeting Nina. I then signed $250,000 of revenue in 90 days. I was making $59.5K pre-tax during that time working at a startup. So that was a pretty formidable jump, as you might imagine. So that totally changed my life, totally set the business up in a really deep way. And then, yeah, I incorporated EE on January 29th, 2019. On January 30th, I changed the name from Essential Entrepreneur to Everyday Entrepreneur. And then, yeah, in 2019, I think the biggest moment was probably building the website. I put about $12,000 to $15,000 into the website, which I still have today.
Wow.
Albeit under a different name. And maybe I'll show some of these just because I think it could be fun. But yeah, so this was me signing my contract. I had someone in my building take this picture for me. But yeah, this was a $60,000.
Awesome.
This was a $60,000 contract I was signing. I was signing my salary in a contract, which is pretty nuts.
It's crazy. So that was the aha moment. You were like, wow, okay, this is something.
That was January 23. Yeah. And so I needed to incorporate the business to actually accept the payment, which is hilarious. So yeah, probably spent about 15 grand in 6 months just building out our logos, building out our website, all things I use today, which is amazing. Just timeless assets. Moving into 2020, 2020 began like a really hard year. I was supposed to teach at Northwestern. COVID killed that. So I launched a cohort-based course called Breakouts that I ran for multiple years. I hosted my first virtual retreat because of COVID. And then we launched this year-long fellowship. And I took on that business partner. So that began the kind of B2C era of Everyday. But 2020 was really hard. I'd had a huge year in 2019. 2020 was nowhere near as big. And I didn't make money in the same way. And that was really jarring for my wife and I. 2020 was not a good year, really hard. Obviously didn't get to go home, anything like that. So 2020 was rough. Coming into 2021, things started to get good. Hosted retreats all over the country. Hosted retreats in Austin, Charleston, Savannah, Rhode Island, Atlanta, Denver, Washington, D.C. Became the convening king, which was brilliant. But despite running 4 cohorts of breakouts that year, my business partner actually decided to leave in July of 2021. So that was another jarring moment. It was definitely the right decision on reflection. But that was really hard because the person that I'd relied on for those last 2 years was no longer there. So it was just me. So that was 2021. I think going into 2022, I launched a dining club called the Saturday Club, which was fantastic. So I started doing natural wine tastings all over the country and the world on a monthly basis. I was hosting chef's table dinners. We did our first international retreat in London in June of 2022, which was incredible. And then I even did a natural wine tasting at the World Barbecue Championships in Memphis, which was amazing.
I remember you telling me about that.
And that was when I realized there was a bunch of people that came up to me and they were like, I was hoping to sell memberships off the back of those tastings. We did this tasting on a $60,000 structure at Barbecue Fest. And I remember this woman come up to me and I was like, oh, she'd be a great member. And she was like, can you do this for my investors? I was like, excuse me? She's like, would you do this for my investors? I go, sure. I go, do you want to join the community? No, I'm not interested in that, but I just want you to do this for my investors. That was the moment I realized that, fuck, this infrastructure I built, I've been using it just to build my community, but the actual play is to actually rent the infrastructure to other people and have them use it to build their communities. And for their most important VIPs, their investors, their industry peers, right? Their colleagues, their teams. So that was a huge moment in 2022 that really changed the game for me. That's when I realized I needed to pivot to B2B. So thus began,
Mhm.
I'd say, a kind of 3-month period where I just went into a hole, started rebuilding the website, and then we went public in Q4 that year of 2022, and I decided to wind down all the B2C operations and just pivot the business to B2B. So that was tough. There were some tough conversations I had to have with individuals that wanted the community to keep going, and it become a huge part of their life. They traveled around the world with me, and we'd done amazing things and built incredible relationships. But that was the right move. So coming into 2023, I raised $250,000 in 21 days for a new hospitality concept in Chicago. So that began the capital business. I signed my first B2B client. We hosted our first B2B executive retreat in Q4 of last year at the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay. We're going to be doing 2 of those this year, which is incredible. And then, yeah, man, I got married. I got my fucking green card. I wrote my first piece for Monocle. I was back in print. So it's just crazy, man. It was just fucking nuts. But yeah, if I had to give you the rundown, like, those feel like the key high-level moments of the last half decade.
Wow. What a journey. What a journey. So you told me recently that you've been DJing.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that and the accompanying radio show?
Yeah, my podcast used to be called The Junto. And obviously we've talked about Franklin a lot today. But as I was meditating last year, I was really feeling a pull towards music. And I was feeling a pull towards music really because of one moment. I'd gone to a wedding for one of my great friends down in Atlanta in Q2 of 2023. And after the rehearsal dinner, I like to smoke cigars. I took a few of the boys out and went and smoked a few cigars. And got chatting to the guys in there, really lovely guys. And basically the music system, and there was a remote that was being passed around the bar. And you would just choose a YouTube video and play it. And then the music would blast out. So after a couple Angels Envies, or Hennessy's, I guess, and a few togs of a cigar, I was brave enough to go up to the bar and say, hey, do you mind if I put on a song? So I went and put on a song, and everyone went nuts at this Atlanta for 2 nights in a row, because we went back the next night after the wedding. It was so much fun. I held down the music in this place. I walked in and they just gave me the remote. So I held down the music in this bar in Alpharetta, Georgia for 2 hours, 2 nights in a row, just choosing my favorite tracks off Spotify and then typing them into the YouTube TV. And there was a music exec who worked for Empire. I was like, yo, man, you're hard. He didn't say, have you ever thought about doing anything with it? But I didn't really need much more encouragement. And yeah, I remember playing 16 by Rick Ross featuring Andre 3000. And literally I had all these random men come up to me and being like, mate, I've never heard this, is fucking banging. And then I'd be in Ubers, play the same songs. Yeah, anyway, end of last year, I was chatting with one of my friends, Jihad, and he's been a great partner to me over the years. I was like, hey, man, I feel like I want to move away from just having a podcast. Like, it started to feel stale. I was like, I think I need to rebrand this to like a radio show. He's like, you should call it Everyday Radio. I was like, oh, I like that a lot. And the tagline is timeless music, minds, and meditations. So the music element is effectively me mixing a playlist that's around a time of day and a certain day of the week. So Friday night sunset mix. That's the consumption occasion. That's the inspiration. And it's pretty simple. I talk between the songs. I talk about the artists, why I picked them, where they're from. I give some commentary, part hype man. And then I film it. So you can see the sunset from our 42nd floor apartment, or you can see the weather, I guess, for that day. So I recorded one last night. I called it the Cloudy Saturday Night Mix because the clouds are so low yesterday. You couldn't see out these windows. It was just white.
Mm-hmm. Where can we find it?
You can hit me up for the unlisted YouTube link, and then all the episodes will be on Spotify for audio only. Okay. So Spotify's got a record and talk function. The first mix is already live, the sunset mix. You can check it out. I'd love to hear what you think. The only thing to know about that is that Spotify doesn't allow you to mix the music and the talking. So it's not quite like the YouTube vibe. But in time, the radio section of the website will have all the links to the mixes, and it will be on my SoundCloud. So just hit up my Instagram, Cornelius McGrath, and you can find everything. So yeah, it's timeless music, minds, and meditation. So that's music. It's really been inspired by Tiny Desk.
What are the
Also-
meditations? Just ideas that you want to discuss?
yeah, meditation's very, very inspired by like Founders Podcast and just going deep
Mhm.
on books I've read. David Senra's done a lot of episodes and he's read a lot of stuff, but I recently bought Readwise and I was just curious how many books I'd read, and I'd read just as many books as him. All very different though. He just reads biographies. So I want to take a leaf out of Senra's book and do deep dive meditation. So the first meditation I did was on The Art of Gig by Venkat Rao. So there will just be me talking into the microphone, just giving you what I think of the timeless takes, helping you stack ideas like we talked about with the library. And then Minds is the thing I've done forever. So interviewing like we're doing here, bringing great people on the podcast, Rhodes Scholars, top CEOs, entrepreneurs. But then I'm also doing a group podcast with a group of guys that I started the Junto with ages ago. And so we're very inspired by All In. So we get on once a month and we talk about what's going on.
Oh, you listen to All In?
Yeah, I love All In. And so we're trying to do All In, but from the perspective of a bunch of 20-year-olds, and then have hopefully 30 years of content to look back on, as opposed to just like popping up as billionaires. So yeah, that I just feel really creatively re-energized. I think it really demonstrates my range. And yeah, I've got a professional studio in this house. I got a PodTrack P8 for Christmas. I've had the SM7Bs. I've got the M3 Pro now. I've got editors editing everything. AI, as I said, has allowed audio quality to go to the next level. So
right.
Again, I'm going on offense, brother. Like I've never published a single thing on my podcast. And I haven't seen a podcast in the world that combines music, minds, and meditations like that. And it makes a lot of fucking sense, right? Because those are all the things you'd want to listen to. So I just, in the way that, you'll probably only be up for a couple of Founders episodes a month, but you'd probably be up for a little bit Founders and a little bit of music. Oh, and a little bit of All In every day, right? So that brings it back to every day of just, that's the thing that drives everything, is what do we do every day? What are the things we do every day? Can I help elevate that? Play a role in those things in the areas that I'm fit to play a role. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. I feel like there's a lot of potential. I'm really curious where it goes. And I like to think that I can put together a good mix. I went to a few bachelor parties this year and a lot of the bachelors was just like, Cornelius is on tunes. Do not touch the tunes. Like, and people hit me up, be like, yo, that playlist was sick. Like, you got a link? So again, community driven, right? I wasn't going to do anything until I held down a cigar bar in Atlanta. I had no idea that I was.
Do you have a mixer? Do you mix like a DJ, or do you just play songs?
So it's interesting. This is connected to my love of natural wine, but there's a guy that I got into natural wine with, Chris Lingua. He got me into natural wine. He said, wine turns the volume up on food. Music turns the volume up on everything. And he says what he loves about natural wine is it's like a vinyl record. It's the least amount of intervention between the grape and the ground and the bottle. And that's why it's so exciting. It's really interesting with DJing. There's a lot of classic DJs that are like, does anyone mix anymore? Like now you can just press a button and the computer does it for you type thing. And I think my take is like, at least right now, is I want to be the natural wine of music. Like I want there to be no intervention between me and the tunes. Like an amazing playlist to me is always infinitely better than a mix. Infinite. Because you've done less. You've done less. You've touched it less. It's natural. You're using the inner characteristics of the playlist. By designing it that way, you've almost innovated beyond someone who's like mixing and like doing non-natural things to the music. So using synths, right? Slowing things down, running things backwards. And don't get me wrong, there's some really cool DJ mixes out there. But as I've looked at the DJ scene, I think it's become all about the image. People trying to look cool.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, trying to look sexy, trying to look eye-catching. It's, nah, man, fuck that. It's about the music, man. This isn't a modeling.
Are there a lot of good DJs over there in Chicago? A lot of good places to find good music?
Nah. That's another thing. I think no major city is really owning music anymore. Music's kind of been hollowed out to these really expensive, have to queue days in advance, Ticketmaster gigs. And so I just want to get back to my favorite place to listen, which is usually over a stiff drink. Doesn't have to be alcoholic. Could be a fresh bubbly, which is what I like to sip when I'm mixing. And then, I just use my PodTrack P8. So I'm just speaking in between the songs. So there's no intervention. And to me, that's a higher level of creativity because there's less I can do to this to make it sound good. It just is good. And that's the thesis around natural wine. There's all these additives and coagulants that you can legally add to wine. And people are like, that's not natural. It's doing roids or being on the gear a little bit. So yeah, that's how I'm looking at my music right now. And I'm just doing it for myself. As we just talked about the whole holding company, like I don't need to do this, but I'd rather do a secret set at Glastonbury than keynote at South by. 100%. 100%. So I feel like what this is allowing me to do is tap into my cultural capital, which I actually think will probably be my greatest capital source. I think I've been really focused on social, experiential, financials coming into play, but culturally, and this is connected to the passports thing, I'm going to be able to touch a lot of people because I'd feel pretty good that I could create an hour of Meek Mill, Drake, Rick Ross, British grime, folk, whatever it is. And so I can just
have a wide palette.
Yeah. And I can also talk fucking shop and talk business books, right? And talk convening. Yeah. I'm really trying to channel that Groove and Confused from Dr. Dre and use my range as an asset. And back to that imagination, what's he going to do next? I'd like there to be a little bit of that. Like with our favorite artists, right? Drake changed the game because he started singing. Canadian child actor. There you go. So why do we play this boring playbook in business? Why do we do that? We dumb everything down. Let's get some wordplay in here. Let's get some triple entendres going. We're all smart. You know what I mean? Yeah. I feel like you get persecuted a bit in business.
It doesn't have to be so dull.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be so dull.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I have internalized everything that Naval's said, right? Everything that Startup of You said. And like I said, I don't need it to make cash. So I think creatively, I'm going to do great things. Because it's for me. It's for me. Everything has been for me, but this is absolutely for me as well. It's just an outlet, just another way I can show people who I really am.
So on the topic of who you are, you mentioned discipline is a big thing for you, right? And you told us a little bit about how the fact that you recap every single day. It's so crazy. But why is 2024 about discipline curiosity? So what is it about? Yeah, go ahead.
Because the number of brands I've started, man, over the last 5 years, Silver, 1727, the Junto, the Saturday Club, Breakouts, the School, that was all amazing. But you create a lot of cognitive dissonance when you follow your curiosity. And what I learned was you don't really get anything from building a bunch of different audiences and connectivity under different brand names. So coming to Everyday and have it be Everyday Capital, Everyday Advisor, Everyday Radio, right? Everyday Travel. There's a beauty to that. There's a discipline in that. But there's still curiosity in I can expand the palette of things, but it's under one brand. And then I showed you my calendar earlier. I showed everyone my calendar. It's like at the end of the day, I've got enough reps. I've got a beautiful website. I've got the systems. Now I just need to execute. Like I just need to go to the gym. I just need to lift the weights. I just need to eat
more reps.
And it sounds stupid. And I put this in my 2023 annual review, which you've seen, but isn't out yet until Thursday for anyone else, February 1. The kind of day I'm taking as our 5 year. It's mad. Like how do I put it? I just need to do those things. Like I just need to be an athlete. I need to sleep. I need to eat. I need to rest, and I need to repeat. There's nothing else now. I've built the plumbing. I've got the green card. I've got the microphones. I've got the editor. I've got the MacBook. I've got the PodTrack. I've got the content calendar. I've got the AI tool. I've got it. So now I just need to do. And that did create some trepidation.
Just execute.
Yeah, because it just comes down to that. There's no excuse. You just need to get up and do the day. And it sounds unremarkable because you're so used to 5 years.
The hardest part.
Yeah, of going against the grain, of trying to create something from nothing, of dealing with disappointment. So that's why this year is about discipline, curiosity. It's like, I'm going to do the radio show. I'm going to follow my pursuit around music. I'm going to figure out how to share my immigration story, but I'm not going to be starting no brands. And it doesn't matter what happens. Every day I'm getting up and I'm refactoring the backlog. I'm doing 2 buyers. I'm writing for 90 minutes. I'm going to the gym and I'm taking my calls on the midweek. That's it. That is crazy to me because that is not what life's been like the last few years. It hasn't. It's been a lot of building, traveling, trying, the disappointment.
Has there always been this much structure to it, or is the structure more of a newer thing?
I've always been structured, but now I know what I've got. And so it's just, it's completely different, right? It's
tried and true.
Yeah, it's tried and true. So even the second mix, it was just that bit easier to do because I have that first rep. Okay, I know I have 15 songs. I know how much time Spotify wants me to talk. Otherwise, they won't post it. Got my editor on Descript on lock. We got the transcript format down. You can see the beginnings of the library. Like, that's why it's about discipline, man. I just need to deliver. I can still follow my curiosity, but it's going to be under the brand of everyday and re-educate everyone. And again, that's connected to like building in private because I haven't built in public and because I've done a lot of things. I think there could be a lot of dissonance. As my father-in-law joked at my wedding, he just read out every single job role I'd ever had, read out 20 different roles. And then he was like, we still don't know what Cornelius does for a living. Like Tim Ferriss, I think, just started saying he was a drug dealer just to see how people reacted. But there's an element of, I actually want the brand to stand for certain things. And so, yeah, there's just going to be a lot of refactoring going on. And that's looked like going into my podcast backlog, unpublishing episodes that I don't think are timeless, upgrading all the audio, recording a new intro, getting rid of every look at the junto, taking on a new URL, getting a new email. All these things have all been identity shifts that I've gone through in the last year. And then now we're turning 5. It's almost like all that stuff is in chapter 1.
Right.
It's like the old way of doing things. So it really feels like a nice face change. 5 years ago tomorrow since I incorporated. So we are literally talking 5 years to the day. 5 years to the day, which is nuts.
Crazy. I can't imagine where you're going to be in 5 years.
Hopefully speaking to you.
Advising guys.
You like this.
Yeah, true. So you mentioned building in private. Why did you make that decision?
I think because I didn't know what I had. And based on everything I've shared today about algorithms, rewarding specificity, I just didn't want to build a public brand and then be like, oh, fuck, I don't like that brand anymore. Seen it time and time again in the media space. People quitting, people not liking what they built, right? Business can be freedom or it can be a trap. And it's a trap that you create, so it's the worst type of trap. So it's all right if someone else puts you in a trap, but when you put yourself in your own kind of curation, it's tough. And I just feel like building in public, like there's a lot of noise and I just haven't needed it. I wanted to see if I could just do the private thing. Like, oh, that's what the playbook says. Great. I'm going to do the exact opposite and see how it goes first. And sometimes it doesn't work and I end up using some of the more classic playbooks. But yeah, it came from 1, not knowing what I had. 2, I didn't want to be put in a box because the internet as it currently stands only rewards specific brands. And yeah, like I said, there's a difference between being the community guy on Twitter or writing the community Substackerati and being the bloke who runs a community-driven holding company. Right? There's a big difference. I wanted the guru brand, not the pundit brand, to use Venkat's words. So that's why I built in private. I just didn't want to play those games. Because I didn't...
You want people to see like a Grant Cardone?
I'm just not interested. I haven't been interested in that. Now, I'd love people to listen to my mix. I'd love people to fuck with that. But there's a beauty to that. It's the music and it's me doing a little bit of talking. So I that too.
Have you ever thought about how many more clients you could get if you went a little bit more public?
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a world that's there. To me, though, it always comes back to I'll just email that person anyway, right? Like, why am I going to put this video on YouTube and hope that they see it versus let me just send it to them anyway, see how it goes.
Shoot my shot. I think that's my biggest takeaway from you as like an entrepreneur is that like that step of sending a cold email, it might seem insignificant to a lot of people, but it's, first of all, such a hard thing to do,
Yeah.
right? Especially when you're outreaching to people that are much higher than you. And we don't know what the percentage is. I'm assuming pretty good, but for most people, it's not going to be good. And so it's exhausting. It's,
Yeah.
dude, I work in sales. Like, I know this shit, right? It's like you email 1,000 people. Out of those 1,000 people, you might get one or two clients. That is the definition of exhausting. And so the fact that you've been able to maintain this flow of doing this every week, I think it's a big contributor for your success. And I'll tell you what, it's something that that's one of my goals for the year. I've been doing it for 3 months now, is every single week reaching out to my ICP for the purpose of sales, dude. And I'm already seeing that it's a compounding effect. Like,
Yeah.
I'm already closing like my first deal from a cold outreach that I planned 3 months ago. And it just, like, that little shift makes such a big difference in the business.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And that's it. Is I still want to be public, but in private channels where there's no algorithm and I can get direct to consumer. That said, though, I still run a pod, and yeah, more downloads would be cool. More views would be cool. My shit doesn't get that many views, but like I said, I already built a brand on LinkedIn. I think I had 350,000 followers at my peak. Now I got 270. Can't reach 270. I don't even know who they are. I've got no access to their phone number, no access to their email. So what's the point? Can't even access the audience I built.
You ever looked at Ryan Leslie?
Yeah, no, I met Ryan Leslie in 2015. Yeah, Superphone. Love Ryan.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, he's very big on having your audience's phone number. He built, I think, an app or some shit for that.
Superphone, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what you just said. I feel like you might have told me about Ryan Leslie.
Maybe. Yeah. He's a cool dude, man. I'd love to have him on the pod. He'd be a good guy.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. Apparently he went to Harvard.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So, last question. We've been here for about 3.5 hours. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Fucking time flew by.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So we've learned a lot about your company over the past 5 years. Now it's undergoing a big change. But what does the next 5 years look like? Do you have any goals that you set out for yourself?
Yes. I think there are three. I think one I've talked about a lot on the pod, but I want to become a debt-free millionaire. And so that's really just abiding by profit first, nailing the solo 401k, and then playing multiplayer with my wife as a W-2 and me as a business owner. So that's number one. Because I think that financial freedom will be massive and will be a good reward to her and my parents, my other siblings, family, for everything they've given me. So that's number one. I do think it would be cool to gross $1 million in profit 1 year as a one-person business. With 5 subsidiaries, that would be 200K in profit. If it ends up being 4 subsidiaries, be 250K in profit, right? Ends up being 10. Discipline, curiosity, it would be 100K. But I think that would be cool, and I think it would be good to build up to that in 2027. If this year's 50K of profit per subsidiary, next year's 100, then 150, then 200, right? So that's really awesome. And then final one, man, is just to share my immigration story. So whether that's writing the book I've always talked about, Resident Alien, or starting an immigration business, I'm not sure yet.
What an immigration business look like?
That's a great question. There are some really cool ones that have popped up. I'm not sure I have the answer yet, but...
Like a tech business or like a services business?
Yeah, I think it would be... I'm not sure what it would be around because there's so many cool tech platforms now for the application. But it'd probably be something around strategy, business creation. I'm sure there'd be some type of lobbying element, right? Some research element. But I know so much about immigration, like I would like to get paid for the thing that's cost me so much. And also help people on what is the most important journey, right? Like if I've just said, hey, I've actually been on defense the last 5 years, can you imagine what that means to someone who's been waiting on their green card for 20? That's nuts. So yeah, I think those are the three. Debt-free millionaire, be sick to do $1 million in profit, just to tell the story. One person, hold co, and then, yeah, I want to find a way to share my immigration story and get paid for everything I know in that space. So that's how I feel today. But I'm sure those goals will change, and you'll know I'll write about them in the annual reviews and quarterly letters. But I think if I had to fast forward and that was true, those 3 things were true, I think I feel pretty good about myself. So yeah, man, that's how I'm thinking about it.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's a wrap. I want to thank you for having me on your show and recapping the story of your business. It's been really fun to watch you do it in real time and talk all throughout your journey one on one. But it's crazy hearing it like this recapped. I've heard little snippets here and there, but I haven't really heard the whole picture. So yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing, man. You're going to be a very impactful entrepreneur. I really feel that way.
Thank you, man. Look, I appreciate this. I think this is the first 5-year review podcast I've seen from anyone. I think we made a bit of history tonight and hopefully catch you on the flip for the 10-year.
Absolutely, bro. Count me in.
Cool. Cheers, Dan.
That one would have to be like 7 hours.
7, hey. Run out of upload limit on Spotify. But yeah, man, really appreciate you.
Literally.
This was super fun.